Hey everybody, and welcome to Kensington Online. My name is Patrick, and we're so glad that you decided to join us today. If it's your first time, I want to say a big welcome to you and let you know that we're going to be together today for a little bit over an hour. During that hour, you're going to hear some amazing music, a helpful message, and you're even going to have the opportunity to comment below and connect with the service host right here online. So we would love for you to do that. We're going to be sharing some of the main points from the message. You're going to get links to the songs and even some ways that you can reach out and connect with us if you'd like to do that. One of the ways that you can do that is actually going to thehubtc.com. That's thehubtc.com. If you can fill out that form, what will happen is one of our staff members will connect with you and answer any questions that you have about your experience today or even about our church. I also want to invite you to follow us on social media if you're not currently doing that. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and those are really the best ways to find out more about who we are and all that's going on around here, and even be able to see a behind-the-scenes glimpse at how it all happened. So we would love to connect with you on one of those social media networks. Well, I think we're about to get started. Again, we're so excited that you decided to join us today, and we'll see you right back here in just a few minutes.
Well, good morning, Kensington. Let's stand to our feet and sing. Here we go. Come, let us worship our King. Come, let us bow at His feet. He has done great things. Come on, let's sing it out. And see what our Savior has done. See how His love overcomes. He has done great things. Yeah, He has done great things. Oh, hero of heaven, you conquered the grave. Free every captive and break every chain. Oh God, you have done great things. We dance in your freedom, awaken to life. Oh Jesus, our Savior, your name lifted high. Oh God, you have done great things. Yeah. Be faithful through every storm. You'll be faithful forevermore. You have done great things, and I know that you'll do it again. Your promise is yes and amen. You will do great things. God, you do great things. Come on. Oh, hero of heaven, you conquered the grave. You free every captive and break every chain. Oh God, you have done great things. We dance this morning. Let's sing it again. Hallelujah, God, above it all. Hallelujah, God, unshakable. Hallelujah, God, have done great things. You've done great things. Oh, hero of heaven, you conquered the grave, free every captive and break every chain. Oh, God, you have done great things. We dance in your freedom, awakened tonight. Jesus, our Savior, your name lifted high. Oh, God, you have done great things. You have done great things. You have done great things. Hey! Done great things. Oh.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jane Cavender.
And I'm DC. Oh, Cavender.
There we go. Any
Because
Irish
today
people?
is St. Patrick's Day, where everybody's a little bit Irish. So happy St. Patrick's Day to you. But if this is your first time with us, seriously, we want to welcome you here and thank you for coming to Kensington, where we've created a safe environment for you to come each week and explore your faith.
Today we're starting a new series. It's called Forms, where we'll be discussing the life and teachings of Jesus Christ and how we can be the best me we can be. So stop out at the Hub if you'd like to learn more after church. It's located underneath the 3 TVs and the orange graphic.
And of course, if you're watching online today, or if going to a table after service is not your kind of thing, that's all right. We have created a digital space online. It's called the Hub TC. It's called thehubtc.com, and you can click onto there, log on anytime, and then a member of our staff will get back to you very quickly with any questions that you might have.
DC, did you know there are no female leprechauns? But I'm feeling a little leprechaun-y today.
Well, saints be preserved, Jane. I did not know that, but with it being St. Patrick's Day today, I thought maybe we could play a St. Patrick's Day game.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Okay.
Let's divide up the church to the left, the center, and the right.
Or as I like to
Okay.
say, orange moons, yellow stars, and pink hearts.
Okay, there you go. Okay, we're going to draw. One group, one section is going to be a winner. Anybody feeling lucky out there? Is anybody feeling lucky? All right, very good. All right, here we go. Here's the winning section. Whoop. There we go. All right. Here we go.
Who's it going to be?
I can't open it. There we go. The left section.
The left section. The orange
Hey!
moons. Hey!
All right.
Well,
Very
we got
good.
volunteers who are going to come down and hand out some nice gifts for you today. In the meantime, you're all on your feet, so turn around, look to the person around you, wish them a happy St. Patrick's Day today, and ask them this question.
What will you be doing later on for St. Patrick's Day?
Say thanks again. The service today and want to find out a little bit more information about who we are. And so we've created an environment for you to do just that. Simply go to startingpoint.today. That's startingpoint.today and fill out that short form, and one of our staff members will reach out to you very shortly and answer any questions that you have about our church and about who we are. Again, thanks so much for watching. We'll be back at the end of the service today to give you a little bit more information, but we'll see you here in just a few minutes.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Ryan. This is Carrie. This is Annie and Brian, and we're going to sing a few songs today about hope and redemption. So if you know them, feel free to sing along. Just stand and sing.
When night has fallen, when fear is coming, still you're calling me. When faith is lost and my hope exhausted, you will be my strength. And when my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me. Yeah, I've decided I'm not giving up. You won't give up on me. You won't give up on me. Love is holding on, it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on, it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo, echo in my soul. Oh, soul. In every season, you keep repeating promises to me. Whoa, whoa, no, there's no stopping what you have started till it is complete. When my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me. Yeah, I've decided I'm not giving up. You won't give up on me. You won't give up on me. Love is holding on, it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo. Love is holding on, it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo, echo in my soul. Soul, echo in my soul. Sing out with my mind. When my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me. Yeah, I've decided I'm not giving up. You won't give up on me. You won't give up on me. Your love is holding on, it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on, it won't let go. 'Cause I feel it breaking out, breaking out. Hey! Your love is holding on, it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on, it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo, echo in my soul. Hey. Soul, echo in my soul.
Who am I that the highest king would welcome me? I was lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love for me. Oh, his love for me. Who the sun sets free. Oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. Free at last, he has ransomed me. His grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, he died for me. Who the Son sets free, always free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for salvation, I turned to heaven and spoke your name into the night. Then through the darkness, your loving kindness tore through the shadows of my soul. The work is finished, the end is written. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Who could imagine so great a mercy? What heart could fathom such boundless grace? The God of ages stepped down from glory to wear my sin and bear my shame. The cross has spoken, I am forgiven. The King of Kings calls me his own. Beautiful Savior, I'm yours forever. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Oh, hallelujah. Praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah. Death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to breathe, and out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. Yeah, let's sing that out this morning. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to breathe, and out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. Oh, Jesus is yours, is the He's the one who set me free. Hallelujah. Death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Hallelujah. Praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah. Death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Oh, Jesus Christ, my living
Hey, thanks so much for singing with us. If it's your first time and you kind of hear a song like that, it's an interesting thought to think that the God of the universe loves you enough, loves me enough to pursue us in that way. And how many of you, if you were really honest, if you grew up around church, you always were given these pictures of Jesus that were like, he's long hair, blue eyes, you know what I mean, pretty sash, long kind of thing, like very feminine Jesus. But the idea that the God of the universe is like a roaring lion, conquering on our behalf, conquering the things that we couldn't conquer on our own, is an amazing thought. And so we get excited about singing that that around here. And I think that's a really beautiful picture of what we believe about the God of the universe and what we believe the God of the universe thinks about you. So thanks so much for singing with us. Hey, I'm going to have you have a seat here in just a second. Before you do, go ahead and turn to 4 or 5 people around you, give them a high five, and ask them, are they excited about St. Patrick's Day, or they need a little bit more coffee? Go ahead and ask them before you have a seat. Some of the special St. Patrick's Day coffee. Hey, we're so glad you're here. I should introduce myself. My name's Patrick, and I'm the lead pastor here, and we are so glad that you decided to join us today. And again, if it's your first time, I want to give you a big shout out. We're super excited that you're here. It's funny, we have a couple of days of the year that are always interesting, especially the 9 o'clock hour, and that is when the time changes. So it's light outside for a lot longer. I'm excited about that. I thought that would melt more snow, but then we had a snowstorm. We had some friends come up from Troy, and it was kind of fun. They came up from Troy, and they were like, we were hoping for like 60-something degree weather, and I was like, oh gosh. Anyway, so no, it's fun, but we love it. It's kind of a fun thing. But we're so glad that you joined us today. And I got a couple of announcements for you before we jump into everything. The first thing I want to let you know about is if you're new to our church, you're amongst a group of people who are extraordinarily generous. And so today, what we're actually going to be talking about, we're going to be talking about generosity for the next little bit. But you're amongst a group of people who really believe that if we come together and we give, then we can see extraordinary things happen. And so the people in this room, the people that you're sitting next to, are part of giving to things on the other side of the world, like bringing clean water to parts of Africa that doesn't have it. You're a part of helping bring young girls out of sex trafficking, which is an extraordinary thing. You're part of all of these types of things here at our church, and even helping in what we do locally with things like Safe Harbor and our outreaches here. And so I just want to say to those of you who attend our church and you give, thank you so much for partnering with us. I want to invite our ushers to move forward. We are going to receive our offering this morning, and if you're new to our church and like, hey, I'm interested in giving, and some of those projects sound interesting, we'd love to invite you to do that. The easiest way to give is actually through texting. So you can actually text the word Kensington to 77977. It's super fast to do that way. And in fact, most of the people that give for the first time at our church, they give through text messaging, which is kind of a crazy thought. Now, but you can do that. You can also give in less than 10 seconds on our Kensington app. In fact, if you haven't downloaded that yet, I would love for you to do that. It's an amazing app. You can get caught up on content there, small group stuff, and obviously you can do your giving that way as well. And you can also go to kensingtonchurch.org/giving. That's a great way to do it as well. You can always set up things online. But those of you who give, again, I just want to say thank you so much for partnering with us. You're making an extraordinary difference here locally and all over the world. So thank you so much for joining us in that. Now, with that said, we've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks, and next week is a big week for our church and really all of our churches at Kensington. We are wrapping up a capital campaign, and I've told you this already. For us in Traverse City, you didn't even know about this really until about 3 weeks ago, and we started talking about it. We actually didn't participate really in the capital campaign, and we've been talking about getting involved here at the very end, and so we have a great day of giving that's going to be coming up here in a few weeks. But to let you know a little bit more about that campaign, I wanted you to hear from our founding pastor, Steve Andrews, as he talks about some of these projects that we're a part of and how we give and what kind of difference that's making here in Metro Detroit, all over the country, and then all over the world. So let's watch this video together.
This is a for the king moment and for the kingdom moment where we say, yes, I'm in, and I'm in sacrificially, and I'm believing, God, you will provide, and you will. And I'm doing this for you and your kingdom. God, may use us, this family on mission, to accomplish your mission.
This adventure called Everyone requires significant financial resources to fulfill our mission to see everyone transformed and mobilized by Jesus. To accomplish big-time kingdom movements like discipling the nations and the next generation, we asked everyone to pray about making a financial commitment over and above their current level of giving. So far, 3,728 households committed financial pledges, totaling over $21.5 million to the Everyone campaign. During the past 3 years, these households have given more than $17.2 million so far. We are blown away. I'm blown away by the open-handedness and generosity of our church family.
With the Everyone campaign coming to a close, let's take a look at what has been completed to date. All of this was possible because of the sacrificial giving of those who participated in the campaign. Traverse City became an official Kensington campus back in September 2016. There were many upgrades made throughout the building, including a new lobby for our first-time guests and a completely overhauled kids wing. We were able to upgrade the equipment in the auditorium so that it has the same level of excellence as the other Kensington campuses. We have seen an increase of nearly 100 kids every week in Kensington Kids. We are accomplishing our mission of reaching the one through younger families and the next generation in northern Michigan. Now, let's head to the east side. For almost 12 years, the Clinton Township campus made the weekends happen by unloading several tons of equipment into a rented facility. But in May 2018, CT has a permanent facility. Now nearly 4,000 people attend this new facility every weekend, and hundreds come through the doors the other 6 days of the week to discover hope and healing and to learn about a God who loves them and to find community within Macomb County. Did I mention they even have a fireplace? Jealous. We were also able to fuel the Kensington engine with upgrades to things like our website. There were 38,000 unique visitors last month visiting our site. IT infrastructure and online streaming equipment were also improved. These systems will help us manage information and communicate with people to more effectively reach the one. Have you ever heard of the saying, "This is why we don't have nice things"? Well, we can't say that anymore at our Troy and Orion campuses. Now our guests can enjoy their cup of coffee in our updated lobbies. New furnishings, floorings, and a fresh coat of paint in our permanent buildings make this a place where our first-time guests feel welcome. There is also clearly marked signage for the kids area and a hub where anyone can ask questions or get involved. Orange never looked so good. The Troy, Orion, and Traverse City campuses have made several upgrades with security for all the kids' areas. And at our new Clinton Township building, it was built right in. Now this one is not as thrilling as the others, but oh so important. The Orion building received a new stage floor and a new roof. Now, no more buckets strategically placed on rainy days. Seriously, it was leaking. We believe that investing in the next generation is a way to transform our local communities around Metro Detroit and Traverse City. So far, funds from the campaign have helped launch Youth with a Mission in Detroit. We have also poured significant financial resources into fueling our School Partners program, which partners with public schools near each of our campuses. A special thanks to our Kaleo Kids program, which has the awesome opportunity to work directly with 6 elementary schools. These kids not only have a chance to participate in the arts, but to hear about the love of Jesus as well. One of the passions of Kensington is church planting. Many churches to reach many different people groups and regions. In the past 3 years, Kensington has had the privilege of launching 2 church plants. Easttown Church with Clint Dupin and Michael Dupin near San Francisco, and Anthem Church with Colin and Liz Harfield in the Boston area. Great things are happening coast to coast, thanks to the movement of God through the Everyone campaign.
Just because the capital campaign is coming to a close, it doesn't mean all the projects have been completed yet. There are still several powerful projects that need to be funded and will be funded if we hit our $21.5 million in original commitments. We see no boundaries in building God's kingdom. Some households have moved away. Some have had other financial obligations arise that required them to not fulfill their original commitment. But it's still our goal to reach the $21.5 million during the 3 years of this campaign by March 24th. And it's going to take our entire congregation to accomplish all the plans and projects of this campaign. For some, this means fulfilling their original commitment amount. For others, it means giving over and above. And for many, it means making a one-time gift to everyone so that we can finish strong and complete all the projects that God placed on our hearts to accomplish. By reaching our goal, we'll be able to have cash secured in a savings fund for the Birmingham campus when a 24/7 building opportunity arises. After 12 years of meeting at Groves High School, a facility will allow us to make a bigger impact to reach the one. On a regular basis, we're exploring possible locations, and it's been in our plans to set aside $3 million for Birmingham's permanent facility. The Troy campus, now being over 20 years old, which is unbelievable, needs updates such as the kids space so that we can continue to pour into the next generation. New signage, auditorium seating, and even a new parking lot is needed so we can welcome our guests with an excellent first impression. For the Orion campus, we have plans for lobby improvements and new seating in the auditorium, a second floor addition in the training wing, and potentially, and maybe most importantly, an orange slide in the kids area. By reaching our goal, we will be able to support and fund projects for our global partners. In Kenya, we'll be able to provide discipleship training for pastors, educate women and children on the anti-FGM movement, and reach the one in Pokot with new churches. In Nepal, we'll be able to fund more border stations between Nepal and India to keep girls safe from exploitation and to bring victims of human trafficking into safe homes to find healing and hope. We believe that God is continually on the move. And because of that, we want to be on the move as well. And all these projects, they're not just about the buildings or shiny new equipment or keeping up with the times or looking cool. It's about people. It's about the one. It's about people having a real encounter with Jesus. That's what we live for. That's what we die for. That's what we've given our lives to see happen. And it doesn't matter if it happens at one of our campuses or church plants or school partners or across the globe or in someone's living room. We long to see everyone transformed and mobilized by Jesus.
It's pretty incredible. Like when you think about all of our churches coming together to be a part of those projects, it's an amazing thing to be a part of. And for us in Traverse City, it's been interesting because the first $1.8 million of that campaign actually came directly to our church here, as they were talking about at the beginning of the video, to make possible this transition that we've had to Kensington. And so we've been talking over the last few weeks, and if you've missed it, I want to get you updated. What we're saying is that next Sunday, right, this coming Sunday, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be jumping in on this the campaign for the very first time. And we're asking you to consider what would it be like for you to give to be a part of this campaign. Now, Steve had mentioned this in the video, but we've pledged a little over $21 million, and to date, we've actually brought in about $17 million. So all of our churches are coming together to say, hey, how could we close this gap? And what we know is that it's not going to come together and it's not going to be closed by one or two gifts. It's really going to be all of us coming together to sacrificially give to be a part of this. And so our challenge here in Traverse City, really specifically for you, is, hey, we haven't jumped in yet, but for us, we would love to jump in at the end, and I'm going to challenge you next week to think about what it might look like for you to give sacrificially to this campaign. For some of you, that's $50. For some of you, that's $100. Some of you, it's $1,000. Some of you, it's like $5,000. Whatever that is, you kind of know, but we want you to talk to your spouse. We want you to talk to your significant other. We want you to think about what would it look like for you to partner with this campaign. And so what we're going to do next week is we're actually going to come together, and on your way out, you're going to get one of these sheets, but I'll show you this real quick. On this, it's really kind of like a pledge for us to say, hey, we're going to finish this campaign strong. For us in Traverse City, we're jumping in, and the vast majority of us would really click this last box, or this next to last box that says, hey, I'm new to this campaign, and I'm going to jump in here at the end and be a part of it. And then on the back side of this, we're going to ask you to fill out both sides of it. The back side of this says, hey, here's how I'm finishing strong, here's the way that I'm doing it, and put some of your information in there. And then next week, we're going to do something really cool, and it's going to be a little bit weird and interesting for all of us because we haven't done this yet here. We're going to ask you to bring that back with you next week. We'll give you a little bit of time in service if you didn't get a chance to fill it out, and we're going to ask you to come, and we're actually going to bring all of these together as a whole church, and we're going to put them in a box, and we're going to say, hey, here's what we're believing in faith that God might do as we give in this way. Now, having said all that, I wanted to say one last thing. I think I've said this every week. One of my favorite things about being a part of Traverse City is that Traverse City is like the best city in the world. Am I right? It's pretty fun. We're like a foodie town, and so you don't eat at Outback. I think I've said this. You eat a Blue Tractor. Do we have any Blue Tractor fans other than me? I love Blue Tractor. I think that's pretty obvious, but it's the mac and cheese. Now, we love things that are local here, right? And it's easy for us to give to the local things, but a lot of times, even in my conversation, sometimes it's hard to give to things that you don't even know about, things that people you may never even meet, people on the other side of the world. It feels kind of different. Like we're an hour from the interstate up here, which is still kind of weird. Just so you know, we're about an hour and 45 minutes from Chick-fil-A, just so we're on the same page. We have all these kinds of things, but here's here's what I would say to us, and this is the fabric of our church, is that at Kensington, we just believe that we're going to give to people that we may never meet, right? In Traverse City, we want to be a part of that. We're going to give to people that you may never meet on the other side of the world. We're going to give to people in Clinton Township so that they can have a building and the people that live in that area can have a church. We're going to give towards the Birmingham campus so that people living in Birmingham can experience the kinds of things that you experience here with a permanent facility. We're going to give to the Missions Project to help kids with Kaleo kids, even though you may never meet those kids. And so one of the things that I'm praying about, our family's praying about, we're going to jump in as well, is what would it be like for us to give to people that we may never meet? And the beautiful part about this, and one of my favorite things about our church in particular, is that there were a group of people in Metro Detroit who gave so that you could experience what you're experiencing here today, knowing that they may never meet you and they may never even come up here, which I don't know why they wouldn't, but they may never come up here, right? They may never experience that. So we're going to challenge you to do that. Again, that's next week. We're going to actually come ready for that, and we'll give you those materials on your way out today. The other thing I want to let you know about is we're kicking off a brand new class coming up. It's called Financial Peace. We've been talking about this again for the last few weeks. This is one of the most powerful things I think you could be a part of here at our church. It's kicking off April 9th. My wife and I have gone through this at least once. We've gone through this really another time since we've been married, and then my mom, when I was in high school, made me go through this as well, right? It's kind of been beat into me. And if you've had like financial things where it's like there's a constant dull sort of ache or angst in your mind, Financial Peace is a great thing to help you kind of alleviate that and get you on the right path. So we'd love to invite you to be a part of that. The other thing I want to let you know about is we have Render coming up this week. How many of you have ever been to Render? Anybody been to Render? Great. It's one of my favorite things that we do. We do music. It's a great way to meet some new people. And we'd love for you to be a part of that. It's this Wednesday night at 7 p.m. We've been doing a series on fear, and so we're wrapping that up this coming Wednesday night, so we'd love for you to join us for that. And then my last thing, and then we'll jump into the talk, is we've got the K-Kids Staycation that's starting for the next 2 weeks. So spring break is coming up for the next couple of weeks, and then again, if you live in Traverse City, we already are in vacation area. So a lot of you aren't traveling. So for those of you who are here, what we're going to ask you to do is when it comes to your kids on Sunday morning for the next 2 Sundays, they get to come in their favorite like summertime clothes, right? Maybe a jacket, too, that might be helpful. But once they get here, the jacket comes off, and we're going to create a space for them to really have kind of like a staycation over the next 2 weeks over spring break here at our church. So Desiree and Jeannie have been planning this out. It's going to be so much fun. But we would love for you to jump in on that. So make sure that they come in their clothes for that. They can even bring their favorite summer stuff along with that. But we're going to be doing that over in the K-Kids wing. Now, with all that said, today we're kicking off a brand new series called Formed, which I am very excited about. We have been getting ready for this for a little bit, and what we're going to be talking about over the next few weeks is really a couple of disciplines that when we apply make a significant impact in our lives. But as we're going to discover for the next few minutes is that a lot of times those things that we're trying to apply can be painful and they can be difficult. So to get us thinking in that direction, we got a short video, and then we're going to jump into the talk. So let's watch this together. All right, so to kick things off, here's my first question, right? Now, again, you're in church, so for the next few minutes, you can't lie, right? You have to be really honest for the next couple of minutes. How many of you growing up were like the troublemaker in your household? Like you had brothers and sisters, but you were the one who got in trouble. Go ahead, raise your hand. Go ahead, yeah. And then how many of you were like the goody two-shoes? You never got in trouble and your parents just loved you and you got everything you ever wanted. Anybody? Yeah, that's great. All right, so let me talk to the troublemakers real quick. Troublemakers, do you remember the moments when your parents would get frustrated with you and they would punish you like severely? Do you remember these? Like your parents would put you in timeout and they'd be like, your dad got really angry. Like you go to timeout for 5 minutes, but then he forgot about you and then you were in timeout for like 30 minutes. Anybody have that happen? Just me, right? How many of you, and again, spanking is kind of one of those things, we'll be careful here, but how many of you, when you got spanked, your parents would tell you that it hurt them more than it hurt you? Anybody? Yeah? How many of you just thought that was crap? Anybody else think that? Like, my mom would tell me this, and then she would start like almost crying about it, like this hurts me more than it hurts you. And then when she spanked me, she was like, ha ha! You know, like there's a weird, like she was joyful about it. I was like, where does that even come from? And there's going to be a gif of what I just did, I think. That's unfortunate. Wow. Yeah, so you got all these things where you're like, your parents, like when they punished you, they felt these things. And the interesting thing about punishment, especially when you're a kid, is the idea isn't, just that I want to punish you. The idea is that I'm going to help you become a better kid or a better person, or I'm going to develop your character in that. And so we're around that from the time that we're little kids. I got a 2.5-year-old. I keep saying that. He's almost 3. And we're still trying to figure out, is he upset because he's frustrated and doesn't know how to say it, or is he actually being defiant? And for me, it's always interesting because when he comes and every once in a while like hit me on the leg or something like that, I still think he could probably beat me up. I'm just kind of looking at him going, whenever anybody hits me, I have the same emotion. You know what I mean? Like it's not a great one. And I'm like, how do I help you understand what you need to understand? Now, that's a little bit of what we're kind of getting after in this series. Like, there are ways that we're formed that people can just give you information and you hear the information and you just apply it and you go. But for most of us, we kind of have to learn the hard way, especially all of you who are the troublemakers, right? In fact, we could say it this way, that many of our most important qualities are formed through tension and not comfort. Right? Like many of the lessons that you've learned, they're formed through tension and not comfort. Some of you experience this in the dating world. Like you dated somebody in high school. Come on, you dated that person in high school and you learned a lot about yourself and the other person. Anybody? Like, I know exactly what I don't want in somebody else when you did that, right? And you learned that through tension. You learned that through a breakup, right? There's all of these kind of areas of our lives and difficult places that we learn these truths through tension. And for some of us, if we're really honest, no matter, if you're 20s or you're in high school or you're, mid-50s, wherever you are in the age spectrum, there are some tensions that never are fully and finally relieved, right? In fact, there are some lessons that you are learning throughout the whole course of your life. And as you learn these lessons, sometimes it gets a little bit better, sometimes it gets a lot worse, but you're kind of in this constant tension. And the comfort thing, right, you could choose comfort, but you know that you shouldn't, and you just kind of live in these tensions, and you're constantly learning some of these lessons. Now, what I want to do today is I want to spend a little bit of time talking about one of these things that's very personal and difficult for me, right? And it actually stems from a verse in the Bible, if I could be really honest, that I wish wasn't there, right? In fact, as somebody who's like, I teach out of the Bible a lot, this is one of those things that if I could like pick one and remove it, a lot of times for a lot of my life, I wish I could have done this. And the reason is because the standard that's set in this particular verse almost feels so high that I'll never, ever reach it. All right? The standard that's set in this verse is actually a principle that if I applied it, I agree with it, but on a day-to-day basis, it's just very difficult to figure out how to apply. And so the verse comes out of Acts 20, and it's a quote of Jesus, which I love this, right? So in Acts 20, it says this, "And everything I did," this is Paul talking, "everything I did, I showed you that by this kind of hard work, we must help the weak." So talking about helping people who are less fortunate. "Remembering the words the Lord Jesus himself said," I love this, says, "It is more blessed to give than to receive," right? So can we read that last part together, the quote that Jesus said? Let's read it together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. "It is more blessed to give than to..." Now, I'll tell you, I heard this growing up a lot. My mom would say this. I heard this in a very real way from my football coach, right? Anybody play football? You know what I'm talking about? My football coach would look at me all the time, and I was a quarterback. I didn't like to get hit. And he would be like, "Hey, if somebody's coming after it, it's more blessed to give than to receive." And I was like, yeah, that's a different take on that, He's quoting Jesus for football. And I was like, that's very interesting. Now, I believe this. I do. And I agree with it. And I think, yeah, I think Jesus is right. But in my day in and day out world, this is hard to apply. And it's hard to apply not just financially, right? As soon as we start talking about this, almost everybody just assumes financial stuff first. And that's a part of it. But this principle applies to every aspect of our lives. That it is more blessed to be the person who is giving to others than simply the person who's receiving. Now, if I'm gonna be really honest, and this is me, this may or may not be you, but if it's me, my problem with being the person who is primarily focused on giving is around an idea or a set of feelings that I have around this. That I feel like a lot of times I just don't have enough. Like, how do I give something that I don't have? How do I give in ways where I don't feel like I have the margin to do it? How do I give when everything around me feels like, hey, I don't have enough to give? I told you I had an almost 3-year-old. I also have a 6-month-old. I'm married. My wife and I both work. And one of the areas that I feel this constantly is right here. I don't have enough time, right? There are days that I feel like I just don't have enough hours in the day. Like I get up, I eat breakfast every once in a while. I get in the car, we do everything. It's like a routine that we do every day. And in my heart, I want to invest in other people. In my heart, I want to wake up and do certain things that, I wish I felt like I had time for. And then I get home, and every night, I don't know if you're like me, like, I'm going to clean the house tonight. And then I look at all those toys, and I look at my son. I'm like, he's literally going to pull them all out again. I think we're good, Like I don't feel that. Like, there are days, I don't know if you're anything like me, where I feel like I want to be present with the people that are in front of me, but it feels like there's all of these other things pulling at my attention. I want to give, and I believe in the principle, but there are days that I just don't feel like I have time. The other one is this, like, I don't feel like I have enough money. And here's what's so interesting. I used to think that this was just a me thing. Other people who made more money, they felt this way. And then I was working in Atlanta. This is one of the most significant moments of my life. And I'm sitting next to, or in front of, one of the CEOs of one of the largest companies in Atlanta, one of the largest companies really in the world. And he's, all the zeros after his, are very much different than mine, right? And I'll never forget sitting in front of him over coffee. And I'll never forget the moment that he looked at me and he said, sometimes I worry about losing it. Sometimes I worry about, like, is this enough for my family? And I'm like, well, I think it would be enough for me. Like, I remember my first job. I don't know if you remember this. I think I made my very first job. I think I made $13,000 a year, right? And I was a part-time worker who worked very full-time hours during college, And I'll never forget going, I get $13,000. And then I remember when it went up from there, and I remember, like, my first actual full-time job, that almost doubled, and I'll never forget sitting there going, I'm freaking rich. Like, I felt great. And then all of a sudden, it's like every step up from that, though, it was never enough. Because, like, lifestyles seem to just keep going, you know what I mean? And I never feel like I have enough money. And what's interesting is you may never feel that either. You may never feel like you have enough money to be able to give the amount away that would make you feel like it's more blessed to be a giver than the person who's receiving. And then the one that I don't think we talk about enough, and I think for a lot of you this is true. Again, we don't talk about, especially us guys don't talk about this, that I don't have enough gifting. Like, I don't have enough talent to be able to pursue some of the dreams that deep down inside I want to pursue. That there's a part of me that will never rise to the level, and then all of a sudden you start looking around and comparing yourself to other people. Well, they got there at 28, and I'm 31, Or they did that at this time. Or somebody bumps ahead of you on the ladder, and you don't look at them. You want to look inside of yourself, and you feel terrible. Like, you're like, why didn't I get that? Why wasn't I enough to get to that place? I talk about this with parenting all the time. It's fun on Facebook because everybody's an expert on parenting on Facebook. Are you right? And everybody wakes up in the morning and just looks like, oh, like, everybody does that. Then I'm like, I don't. I wake up in the morning and everybody's like, oh my gosh, we're not perfect. Like, I don't have enough of the things to feel like I have it together. Now, there's a book out that's one of my favorite books. It's been out for a long time. In fact, I read this late high school, early college. And next to the Bible, it's probably been the most influential book of my life. It's called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And there's so many great principles from it. But one of the principles that Stephen Covey talks about is a mindset shift. And he talks about 2 different mindsets. He talks about a scarcity mindset and an abundance mindset. All right? Scarcity mindset meaning, and you can kind of gather this, that in my life and in my world and the way that I view things, right, I always feel like I don't quite have enough to be able to do what I want to do, right? Now, you understand scarcity, right? If you ever thought about the first iPhone, you remember this? Like, lines were around the building to get that first one because there was a limited supply and they ran out, right? Some of you felt this at one point with Tickle Me Elmo. Did anybody remember the Tickle Me Elmo gifts? These went like that. This was like pre-Amazon, like for real day. So you weren't just like, I'm just going to order it. And no. You had to go to a store. You had to kick the person in front of you. You had to move people on Black Friday to get this toy because your kid needed it. I was that kid. Anyway, so yeah, you took me on one. And then you got this one. And I love this. Donuts. Now, you're probably not like me, but my favorite donut shop in town is Harvey's Donuts. If you've ever been to Harvey's, if you're watching Harvey, I'll take some free one. But anyway, so it's great. Harvey's Donuts is amazing, right? They're the best donuts in town, hands down. When you go to Harvey's, it's a guy, he started this like a hole-in-the-wall shop, but he makes an amount during the day, and then once he sells out, he's done. So if you don't get there and you don't get one, it's like, we'll see you tomorrow, And so the other morning, I thought I was getting there on time at like 10:45. I'm like rushing my kids to get in the van. I didn't even tell my wife we were going. I was like, we're going to go get breakfast. I do this whole thing. And we show up, and I turn off, and I get out, and I look, and they're just not there. And I'm like, there's just not enough. Here's what's interesting about the scarcity mindset and the abundance mindset. And I love this. Both of those mindsets not just shift your thinking, they shift your actions. If you believe that there's never enough, you're going to respond differently. If you believe that there's more than enough, you're going to respond in a certain way as well. Now, here's how we know this. Let's do a little exercise. Right, all of you in the room, can we just, at one time, can we just all take a big deep breath? Ready? Let's take, do in, just let it out. Let's just do one more so we relax. Some of you are a little tense. Let's go ahead. Let's let it out. Right, now here's what you didn't think. You didn't just think, we might run out of air if he keeps breathing. You didn't think that. Now imagine this for a second. Imagine we're underwater and we're scuba diving. And you're with the person sitting next to you, whom you love. Maybe, I don't know. And your pack goes out, and you know that you're going to have to share the other person's pack. And air becomes like, scarce. There's a part of you that will respond differently in that moment as soon as it becomes scarce. Now, when you apply this principle to other parts of your life, you're like, it changes things. That you respond differently and you become less centered when it feels like it's scarce. You become a less better person. That's not a great sentence. You become a less good person. That's even worse. You don't become a good person when scarcity is in front of you. Now, here's the cure for that, and this is what I'm going to talk about for a few minutes. All right? Scarcity and abundance is really centered around one idea in terms of action. Right? You can continue to have a scarcity mindset, or you can have an abundant mindset. The abundant mindset will always lead you to being generous, right? It always will. You will always figure out a way when you're living in abundance to figure out a way to be generous. Now, here's what I know about you, because this is true about me too. As soon as I put the word generous on the screen, you just already went, well, I'm already generous, because you are, right? You figure out, even though you've got to put 2 kids to school and do this and do that and run errands and take out the trash and clean the house and still work 40 hours a week, you still figure out ways to give your time and your resources and your gifting to other places. In fact, most people, if we did a survey right now, would say we're all generous. Very few people wake up in the morning going, I'm just not generous, because all of us are generous to a certain extent. But I think for those of us who are followers of Jesus, and I miss this, for those of us who are followers of Jesus, it's not just about being generous, because everybody's generous to some point. For us, it's about being irrationally generous. Now, that feels weird because I'm a very rational person. So when I say this, what I mean is this, that it means giving past the point of it seeming to make sense. Now, here's what I mean when I say that. And I know this sounds odd, and you're like, well, I don't know, rational? Irrationally generous people are the people that you already admire and look up to anyway. Now, they don't flaunt it, and they don't talk about it all the time, but when you observe it and you see it in somebody else, you automatically admire it. It's the person who doesn't have enough time to have the conversation with you that pauses and looks you in the eye and immediately has empathy and cares about what you care about, even though you know everything around them is kind of swirling. It's the person who you know, and I don't miss this, it's not about the amount of money that they give. It's when they sacrificially give towards something and it affects, and I don't miss this, it affects their lifestyle that you go, whew, that's the kind of person that I wish I was. It's the kind of courage that it takes for somebody to go, I know I'm not the most gifted person in the room, but I show up in the room and I give my gifting and I give all of it and fully to whatever that is. And here's the assumption that's so hard, and this is hard for me, and I think it's hard for most of us, It's looking around and going, hey, it's in that moment that they're not living in scarcity. They're living in assuming that there's an abundance, right? I'll think about this scarcity mindset one more time for just a second. For those of us who are followers of Jesus, it comes down to two very specific questions. The first question is this: do I believe that God will actually take care of me? Some of you genuinely ask that question. You wonder, like, is God up there? And if he's up there, what does that mean? Now, the other side of this is the question that a lot of people don't want to answer, including me, is do I also believe that God will bless me beyond just taking care of me? Some of you believe in God and you believe that God will take care of you. But you also think that that means that you're going to have to move to Africa and live in some sort of hut and never make any money and not have an iPhone again, which that could happen. For most of us who are followers of Jesus, the tension isn't, do I think that God's going to take care of me? The real question is, what does that actually mean? Right, for many of us, we can say it this way. The question isn't, will God take care of us, but will he take care of us in the way that we hope to be taken care of? And that's a tough one to answer. But what's so interesting, and this is what we're going to look at just for a couple of minutes, is that the answer to that question is yes, God will take care of you. But for many of us who are really asking that type of question, we grasp at control and power and being the person who's the provider in our own life, specifically in those three areas. And in so doing, we miss out on the joy of simply following where he's going to take us. When it comes to scarcity and abundance, right, if you believe that the God of the universe actually knows and loves you and is leaning in towards you and will take care of you and will bless you, whatever that might mean, and you also kind of begin to understand that the God of the universe sees everything in the world, including you, as if it's his. That if he's actually all-powerful, and if he actually set this whole thing in motion, and if he breathed existence into the world, and if all of it came together because of the words that he said, all of us, if he's God, right? However you even want to define that, even if you're not a follower of Jesus, if there is a God and he is engaged, at some level, it's all his because he's more powerful than you. There's this beautiful song in the Bible called Psalms, and it says this. This is how it opens. It says, the earth is the Lord's, and I love this, and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. I love this. David wrote this, and he's essentially saying, God, it's all yours. It's not mine. If you could breathe it into existence, you could also breathe it in a different direction. That if I worry about money every day, it's like, God, wait. If you can control all that, that's all yours anyway. All of a sudden, you become a steward of your resources, your gifting, and your time, because it's all a gift from God. Now, the passage I want to look at for the next few minutes actually builds upon this idea. In fact, the people who would have been listening to this, a lot of them had this thought already at the basis and the foundation of these words anyway. And the person who's writing it is a guy named Paul. And Paul is writing to a group of people who struggle with this idea just like we do. Here's what he says. He says, remember this. He says, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly. Now, most of the time we talk about this in terms of money, but I think this is very true in all of these areas. Whoever sows sparingly when it comes to their gifting will reap, whatever it is that they sow, right? If you don't sow in terms of your gifting, you don't experience it. You already know this, right? If you don't have the courage to take a step towards whatever that risk is, you know that you don't experience the benefits on the other side of that. When it comes to your time, now you know this, come on. If you don't sow your time into the right places, you experience that later on. If you don't sow your time into your relationship with your kids early, you can't make that up in a year and a half when they're a junior in high school, right? You can't do it. He said, look, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will reap generously. You'll experience the benefits on the other side of that. And he goes on. He says, so each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. Now, again, I love teaching out of the Bible. This one's always hard for me, especially when we read it in English. I just don't like the word cheerful. I don't know that I'm ever a cheerful person. That's like Santa Claus. He's jolly and he's cheerful. I don't ever think about this. The Greek word here isn't just mean cheerful, though. That's not what it means. The Greek word here actually points towards unending joy. Not happiness. Joy that's rooted in centeredness. Now, I love this, and this is why I love this so much, especially when we talk about finance or we talk about all these things. I don't think you should give because you've been guilted into something. In fact, I don't think you should give because you had this big emotional response. Like, you watched, Sarah McLachlan commercial, and you're like, all puppies get $50. Like, I don't know that that's it, even though those can be good things. And here's why I don't think that, even though those can help different areas, is that's like a match that burns for a second and is done. And you never experience the joy of the posture of generosity. It's not about how much you give. You give $1 million and never feel that sacrificially and don't experience the joy of giving. You could volunteer more than other people or other points in your life, but now you're an empty nester and you seem to have more margin in that area, or now you're like a singles 20s and you seem like I have more margin in this area now, and now you just volunteer more time, but it's not sacrificial, it doesn't hit your heart. That's not joy. You just feel a little bit better about yourself. I love this. I grew up in a tradition where when we talked about money, it was always like a big guilt trip. I actually sat in one church service, I think I've told you this before, and the guy took up 2 offerings because the first one wasn't enough. And I sat there, and I wanted to punch him in the throat in a loving Christ-like sort of way, of course. I'm playing guitar, and I was like, I don't understand. And here's why I don't understand. This is me. It's not his. When you give here, it's not mine. It's not even this church. We're all stewards of the resources that come through and manage what happens when it goes out. Don't miss this. And when you experience the benefits of giving sacrificially, you find a centeredness and a joy. It's just different. When you figure this out with your time, it's just different. There's a joy that comes to it. So he's like, no, not reluctantly. Well, you have decided to give, which means that when you set out a plan and a posture of your life that I'm going to give when it comes to my time and my resources and my gifting, I'm going to predetermine and look out into the future and say, this is what I hope to happen and experience and to see. And if that's what I hope to happen, experience, and to see, this is my plan moving forward. And then he goes on, he says this, and God is able, and I love this, able to bless you abundantly. Not necessarily like if I give $20, I'm going to get $40. That's not what we're talking about. That you will experience the benefits of God's blessing, whatever that may be, abundantly, so that in all things and at all time, and here's the purpose, having all that you need, you will abound in every, can we say this together, in every good work. The end goal, don't miss this, in any sort of giving of your time and resources and your giftings, isn't just about you. It's about God using and leveraging what he's already resourced you with for the benefit of all humanity. And it ends up and it says, as it is written. And then he gives this quote around what it looks like when people do this well. It says, they have freely scattered, I love this, they have freely scattered their gifts to the poor. Their righteousness endures forever. That when you get this right, and I love it, this is the prophecy he's pointing to, that you are a steward, you are a channel by which God uses to scatter good things all over the world. And as long as you kind of do this and you're like, I'm going to grab it and then I'm going to control it. As long as you think you're the provider, I'm good enough because I worked hard enough and I figured it out and that's all important and I figured out my gift, but I made it happen for myself. I'm kind of like, well, you were also born in that family and you figured this out and you did this and in America, there's a lot of things around that you didn't choose. And when it comes to your time, you know what, I figured it out. No. The God of the universe gives you the amount of time that you get. There are things that you can't control that. But you are a steward of all of those things, and the way that you manage it matters so much. And so here's the commitments out of this verse that I want to talk about. That's this. That I hope every one of us, especially those of us who are followers of Jesus, if you're a follower of Jesus, I don't even think it's an option. If you're not a follower of Jesus, I think you could choose not to. But if you call yourself a follower of Jesus, we have to follow this. It would say this: I will choose to be generous with my time. Now, this one's hard, and this is especially hard for me. And if you're a driven person in the room, you're type A personality, you're you're trying to climb some sort of ladder, you feel this a lot. But you've got to figure out how to be generous with your time in whatever phase of life that you're in. Because this one, even more than the other two, and don't miss this, will determine what your legacy becomes. Where you invest your time will determine what your legacy becomes. And this is so hard for me because I like to say yes to everybody. I want to be liked by everybody. I want to have every conversation, all this kinds of thing. But it requires you saying no to some things and yes to some things. Now, here's the principle that you've heard before, and it always frustrates me when people say this, but everyone is given the same 24 hours per day, but not everyone spends them intentionally, right? And here's the hard part. I wrote this morning, this particular line at like 6:15. I was in my van. My son's asleep in the back, and like, it's not spends. People who spend their time aren't doing it right. But those who invest their time, that's the abundance mentality, right? That I've been given this gift of time, however many days I get. And I've got these responsibilities, but I want to leave the kind of legacy that matters, and I'm going to invest my time here. And if you view your time as an investment, it will change all of the things around the way that you spend it. So here's what I would say around this. You got to invest in your family first. The question underneath this, it's the most painful for me to answer, is this. I can feel like I'm investing in my family, but if they don't feel like that, I'm not doing it well. Right? Now, that doesn't always mean more time. You could spend 24 hours a day with your kids and never look them in the eye, and you still may not be doing it right. Right? Right? So the question that I think you have to ask if you're married in the room is look at your spouse and say, hey, do you feel like I'm investing my time with you well? Do your kids feel like you're investing, your time well? You have to invest in your family first. The second one is this, and this one's a hard one. Not everyone who asks for your time should get your time. And that's tough. That's tough. But you shouldn't have to take every meeting. There are times you have to say, you know what, I want to spend time with you, I'd love to, but I can't because I'm investing my time here. Some of you have been a mentor to somebody, and this is so hard, that you shouldn't be a mentor to anymore. Because your investment is going to make a bigger impact here, and that's so hard. That at the end of the day, not everybody gets the same amount of your time because you only have 24 hours, and you are a steward of the way that you invest it, right? You have to remember that not everyone who asks for your time should get it, and they certainly shouldn't get it equally. The last one is this, and this is especially true for me. I don't know if it is for you. But what gets on the calendar gets done, and what doesn't is just wishful thinking. Am I right? My Tanya, who works with us here, she helps me with this a lot, and this is a reminder that she says in a very much gentler way than that. But she goes, hey, you know what? You have to really figure out what are you really pouring into. In this season, what are you investing in? How are you investing in those areas? And it's always painful, but I'll tell you this. When you get to the end of your life, let's say you live to 99 years old, and then another year. So you made it to 100. Congratulations. And you get to 100, and you look back over the course of your life, ready? The way that you approach these three things will matter more than just about anything else. It will. Because you don't get the time back. Those of you who are parents, ready? Who are like, I'll wait till they get to elementary school or middle school or high school. I talk to parents all the time. I've got a 2-year-old, right? Or almost 3-year. Everybody says the same thing. That if you're not intentional about it on the front end, on the back end, you can't necessarily just fix it. Right? You have to figure that out. All right, the other one is this. I'll choose to be generous when it comes to my money. Right? And this is a big one for so many of us. And I want to show you like 2 things around this, and then we'll jump out of this one. The first one is this. Scarcity mindset approaches money like this. That I'm going to live off of what I've been given, and then after that, whatever's left over, I'm going to save. And then after these 2 things, whatever's left over after that, that's what I'll give. Right? And here's a really honest question for a lot of us, including me. We have to ask this question to our family all the time. The question is, am I choosing to live, save, give first, which is a scarcity mindset, which means I got to make sure all of my needs are taken care of, that everything's in place, and then whatever's left, I'm going to think about the future. And then after that, whatever's left, that's what I'll give away. And as long as you're in this, you'll be in a continual pattern. I feel like you're the person who makes all that happen and provide. And then all of a sudden, this is what's interesting. I talk to people all the time. Financial Peace talks about this too. If this is your approach, right? If this is your approach, it doesn't seem like you ever solve the financial angst in your life. Because you're not prioritizing, the sowing and reaping thing first. Here's the abundance mindset. If you assume that God will take care of you and that he loves you and that he's involved in that part of your life, you figure this out. I'm going to choose to give first. I'm going to choose right off the bat what that slice is, and I'm going to have a plan for that. I'm going to choose to give first, right? And then after I choose what percentage I'm going to give, then I'm going to choose to save second. I'm going to be disciplined about my money to say I'm going to give first and make an impact. Then I'm going to think about my future second, and then whatever's left after that, I'm going to live on. Now, I love this, and it's so simple when you talk about $10 bills, right? But if I just choose right off the bat to slice off 10% and I give that away, then I save another 10% after that, and I do that from then on. Now, notice this. I get to live off of, ready? 80%. Out of 10 $1 bills that I get to live off of 8 of them. Now, if I told my son that, he would be like, whoa. Actually, he wouldn't, because he doesn't know the word whoa yet. But he would be like, wow, when he gets that. That's different though when you start talking about thousands of dollars, because you start thinking about, I could do this much with that dollar bill. But if you'll get in the habit of doing this, you ready? Now come on, talk to any financial person. Like I met with a financial person the other day. He literally looks at me, not even knowing we were gonna talk about this. He's like, hey, just make sure that you slice off the first 10, slice off the second 10, and you live off the other 8. And I'm just sitting there smiling, I'm like, yeah. Because you find so much peace and so much joy when you figure that part out. And the last one is this, and this is where we'll wrap up. That I will choose to be generous with my gifting. Now, for some of you who you've struggled with this, or you feel this angst, you feel like you weren't gifted enough, you're gifted in different ways, here's what I want to tell you. The God of the universe has gifted you for the purpose that he's called you to. Let me say that again. The God of the universe has gifted you for the purpose that he's called you to. And some of you look out and you're like, I don't necessarily love what I'm doing in my job, or I have these big dreams for what the future is, but I don't know if I'm gifted enough, or I don't know if I can actually make this happen, or, and you again are the person who's like focused on the scarcity mentality. I don't know if I am enough to do what I feel like I'm supposed to do. And here's what I'll tell you. That will paralyze you, and that will force you to just stop and just continue to look out at whatever the vision is. You don't take steps. But I think if we learn to lean into what that gifting is, all of a sudden, everything becomes more clear. We say it this way: the more deeply we lean in to God's gifting in our lives, the more clearly we see his purpose for our lives. And for some of us, that's painful. All right, I'll tell you, for me, this is the most impactful thing, and it won't feel impactful to you, but this is me. I used to, in my life, I thought I was going to be a musician, and I was going to travel in a minivan for however many years with 2 other guys, and it's going to be so much fun. We would play all these places, and then eventually we'd get big, and then eventually I'd be opening for John Mayer, and then eventually he'd be opening for me. That's fun to think about. For a while I thought music was going to be my thing, and I poured money into it, and all kinds of time, and resources and gifting, but at the exact same time as I was doing that, I started speaking. Right? And I've been speaking a little bit from the time I was a kid, but I just began to discover not only did I enjoy that, and at the time not as much, but not only did I enjoy that, but that's where my gifting was. And we talk about, I'm introverted, why would you be on stage? I love when people go, well, you're introverted, why do you like speaking on stage? There's all these people. I'm like, they're not talking back. It's great. I'm just kidding. Right? So there's all this kind of thing, And I'll never forget the day. This, again, it's not emotional for you, it's emotional for me. That I had a recording studio, I had 7 guitars, I had all this guitar stuff. And I got rid of it all, except for 2 guitars, which are for my son. And you're like, well, who cares about that? Because I knew for me that if I was going to invest my time and my resources into something, I wanted to invest it in what God was calling me to, and the purpose that he laid out for my life. You're like, well, I'm not going to do that. I don't have that. But there is something in your life that you're most gifted towards. And some of you, you've had glimpses of it, but you've never fully experienced it. And in your heart, you just go, I don't know that I'm enough. But when you start partnering what you're brokenhearted over and what your gifting is in, and those 2 things come together, your life feels completely different. So the question for you, the question for you is, will you lean into that gifting even though you don't feel like you're enough yet? And you're just going to choose to adopt an abundance mentality and watch what God might do through you. We talk about moving out all the time. Our end goal isn't that you sit in a seat. Our end goal is that you find your gifting and you move out and you do something extraordinary. Question for you, come on, what do you hope, and I love this question, what do you hope people line up and thank you for one day because of the way that you used your gifting? I want to look one more time at this verse and then we'll wrap up. Jesus himself said, it's more blessed to give than receive. It's more blessed to view it from an abundance mentality rather than a scarcity mentality. So here's what I hope that you do, right? I hope today, as you kind of leave and you think about this, that you acknowledge exactly where you are on this. When it comes to your time, I want you to ask yourself the question, be really honest about it. Where are you in terms of investing your time into the hearts and lives of other people? When it comes to your finances, ready? This one's hard. No one likes to look at this one. When it comes to your finances, are you giving, right? Are you giving in a way where you feel it sacrificially, or do you give what's left over, right? Where is that? Have you experienced the joy of what it looks like to give sacrificially? And when it comes to your gifting, right? Are you somebody who at some level is pausing in fear because you feel like you're not enough? Second one is this: you need to create a routine. You need to systematize it. That I'm going to have a plan for my time, and I'm going to figure out how to do that well. I'm going to have a plan when it comes to my giving. I'm going to do that well. And I'm going to have a plan when it comes to my gifting and how I'm going to move forward and grow in that. And the last one is this, and I wish I could feel a better way to say this, but I haven't yet. I want you to plan your increase. And here's what I mean by that. I want you to plan for the day that you're better in terms of your gifting than you are today. And what does it look like if you do that? I want you to plan for the day, you ready? Where you have double the financial resources than you currently have today. And ask yourself, how would I respond if that came? I want you to think about your time, you ready? You think about this season and the coming season. I want you to plan for that. Right? I want you to plan, what happens when I have more margin in my life to do certain things? Here's what I know that I'm going to do. So when that day comes, I know what I'm going to step out into, and I am going to be a person who is irrationally generous, that other people look at and go, how do you even do that? How do you pull that off? That doesn't make any sense why you would volunteer that much. That doesn't make any sense why you would give away that much money. It makes no sense. I'm looking at you. I don't feel like you're gifting, but you're doing it. It makes no sense why you would do that. And you smile and you go, yeah. But I'm going to choose irrational generosity because on the other side of that is a level of joy, peace, and a legacy so many other people will never experience. So the end point that I want you to walk away with, and we're going to pray and sing a song, is this. As a recipient of irrational generosity, as someone who doesn't deserve the generosity that you've been given because you know you and you're broken and the God of the universe has leaned in and gifted you and given you the amount of time he's given you and given you all of the resources that he's given you, as a recipient of that kind of irrational generosity, we must become dispensers of that irrational generosity. When it comes to our time, when it comes to our resources, and when it comes to our gifting. So what I want to do is I want to pray for you, and I want to pray that you figure out a way to do this. For those of you who are followers of Jesus, I don't think this is an option when you read the Bible. But for those of you who are not, here's what I'd love for you to do. I'd love for you to just go, if this is true and I actually applied it, what would that look like for me? And then to wrap up, what we're going to do is we're going to sing a song that I think highlights this so well, a song called Build My Life. And it's so fun to sing and easy to sing. But when you actually start thinking about it, it's one of the most difficult things to think that I'm going to build my life around an idea that God of the universe is pursuing me and has put me on here on this planet for a purpose, and that I'm a steward of all the things that he's given me. So I'm going to ask you to stand up. I'm going to pray for us, and then we're going to sing the song together, and then we'll wrap up. Let me pray for us. Father, for so many of us in the room, it's easy to kind of bypass the fact that, you've given us the amount of time that we're going to get. You've given us the resources financially. You've given us the giftings, that you've set us on a path to do something extraordinary in the world. Pray for the person in here who looks at all of those things and they would say that they're generous, but not irrationally generous. Father, what I ask is that you help us to come to terms with what it means to be so generous and irrationally generous that we lean in and we give so much of ourselves away. So at the end of our life, when we come to it, we look out and realize that you have made an extraordinary impact through us. God, I pray for the person in the room right now, especially when it comes to time and they're trying to figure it out. God, give them the discipline and the people and the accountability to help them to figure out how to invest well in the lives of other people. Financially, for the people who feel like, hey, I can't even give because I just feel all of this weight of student loan debt or, car debt, all those kinds of things. I don't know how to craft that margin. God, give them the courage to take steps towards that. God, help them to look back on the course of their life and see how generous that they were in the way that you used them. And God, specifically for the person in the room who has all these dreams and they just don't feel like they're enough, God, I pray that you would remind them they don't have to be, and that you are doing something in and through them, and that you have gifted them for the purpose you've set them on course to do. God, I just ask that you would give them the courage to step out and be generous with their gifting, no matter what other people may think. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Sing Jesus, Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. Sing holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. And I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation, and I will put my trust in you alone. And I will not be shaken. And I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation, and I will put my trust in you alone. And I will not be shaken. There is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me.
Cool. So as you head out today, here's what I'd love for you to do over lunch. Like, I'd love for you to start talking about this. As you head out to lunch today and your conversations, I want you to ask yourself some of those questions and begin to kind of wrestle some of these things down. And then next week, we're going to be talking about another principle around this area and what it looks like to kind of live some of the tensions around sharing our faith. And so for those of you who are followers of Jesus in the room, next week is going to be one of those things I would love for you to come back to. We're going to kind of have like a fun kind of family talk around that, which is going to be great. If you've ever felt uncomfortable talking about faith, next week is specifically for you. So we'll be doing that next week. Thanks so much for being here. And if you're brand new, we'd love to connect with you out in the lobby. We're going to be at the Hub. Our family will be out there. We'd love to meet you if you're here for the first time. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you right back here next Sunday. Thank you so much for watching online. We're so glad that you decided to join us today. We hope that you enjoyed your experience with us as well. Hey, I also want to invite you, if you're not following us on social media yet, we'd love to invite you to do that. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Those are some of the best ways that you can come and really learn more about our church and understand a little bit more about all that's going on here and even get a behind-the-scenes look at a lot of things that are happening. So we'd love to invite you back to be a part of that and to follow us on social media. Also, want to let you know, next week what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about what it looks like to share your faith. And if you're a follower of Jesus, we think next week is going to be one of the most important messages that you can hear around this. So we would love to invite you back to learn a little bit more about that. Again, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you right back here next week. Hey everybody, and welcome to Kensington Online. My name is Patrick, and we're so glad that you've decided to join us today. If it's your first time, I want to say a big welcome to you and let you know that we're going to be together today for a little bit over an hour. During that hour, you're going to hear some amazing music, a helpful message, and you're even going to have the opportunity to comment below and connect with the service host right here online. So we would love for you to do that. We're going to be sharing some of the main points from the message. You're going to get links to the songs and even some ways that you can reach out and connect with us if you'd like to do that. One of the ways that you can do that is actually going to thehubtc.com. That's thehubtc.com. If you can fill out that form, what will happen is one of our staff members will connect with you and answer any questions that you have about your experience today or even about our church. I also want to invite you to follow us on social media if you're not currently doing that. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and those are really the best ways to find out more about who we are and all that's going on around here, and even be able to see a behind-the-scenes glimpse and how it all happened. So we would love to connect with you on one of those social media networks. Well, I think we're about to get started. Again, we're so excited that you decided to join us today, and we'll see you right back here in just a few minutes.
Worship our King. Come, let us bow at His feet. He has done great things. And see what our Savior has done. See how His love overcomes. He has done great things. He has done great we dance.
believes that this morning? Come on, let's sing it.
Hallelujah, God above it all. Hallelujah, unshakable. Hallelujah, you have done great things. You've done great things. Oh, hero of heaven, you conquered the grave. You free every captive and break every chain. Oh, God, you have done great things. We'll dance in your freedom. We're waiting tonight. Oh, Jesus, our Savior, your name lifted high. Oh, God, you have done great things. You have done great things. You have done great things. Hey! You've done great things. Oh.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jane Cavender.
And I'm DC O'Cavender today because it's St. Patrick's Day. A
Happy St. Patrick's Day,
to you.
everybody.
And we want to welcome you here today to Kensington. If this is your first time with us, we want to say welcome. We've created Kensington as a safe place for you to come and explore your faith every week.
And today we're starting a new series. It's called Formed. We're going to discuss the life and teaching of Jesus and how to become the best me we can be. If you'd like to find out more, you can stop out in the lobby at the hub. It's under the 3 TVs and the orange graphics.
But if you're watching online this morning or if going to a desk after the service isn't your thing, that's okay because we've created an online platform. It's called thehubtc.com, and you can just log onto there anytime you want. And very quickly, somebody from the staff will get back to you, answer any questions you might have.
All right. Did you know, DC, there are no female leprechauns, but I'm
Saints
feeling...
be preserved. That's it's just not right.
I'm feeling a little leprechaun-y today,
But
right?
it is St. Patrick's Day, so with it being St. Patrick's Day, how about playing a St. Patrick's Day game? Would
Who's
you like
in?
to do that?
Who's in? Let's hear it.
Yeah? Everybody Irish
A couple
today?
people.
All right.
Yeah, everybody's Irish today.
All
Okay, so what are we going to do? We're going to divide up the audience,
Yep.
right? Okay, go ahead.
So we've got the left section, middle section, and right section.
Right section.
Or as I like
Okay.
to say, orange moons, yellow stars, and pink hearts.
All right. Okay, we're going to draw out a name. And what's the prize?
Lucky Charms. What else?
Lucky Charms, right? Okay, so who wants to win? Let's hear it. Little enthusiasm out there? Yeah. Okay, so draw it out, DC. Oh, you
I'll
want me
shake
to?
you draw, yeah.
I could hardly open it up. Okay, the winner. Here we go.
It's the left section this morning, the orange moons. Yes. So we have volunteers who are going to come down and hand out your prizes for you today. No snacking during service, all right?
Okay.
But with it being St. Patrick's Day, look around those to your left, your right, behind you, and in front of you, and ask them this St. Patrick's Day question.
What are you going to be doing later on for St. Patrick's Day?
Hey everybody, this is Patrick, and I just wanted to say thanks again for watching our service today online and being a part of this community. Now we know that you might have some questions as you watch the service today and want to find out a little bit more information about who we are. And so we've created an environment for you to do just that. Simply go to startingpoint.today. That's startingpoint.today and fill out that short form, and one of our staff members will reach out to you very shortly and answer any questions that you have about our church and about who we are. Again, thanks so much for watching. We'll be back at the end of the service today to give you a little bit more information, but we'll see you here in just a few minutes.
Well, what's up, everybody? My name is Ryan. This is Annie. This is Brian. This is Carrie. We're excited to be here with you guys. We're going to lead you guys in a few songs talking about hope and redemption. So if you know the words, feel free to stand and sing along. Here we go.
When night has fallen, when fear is coming, still you're calling me. When faith is lost and my hope exhausted, you will be my strength. Sing when my mind says I'm not good enough. God, you're enough for me. Yeah, I've decided I'm not giving up. You won't give up on me. You won't give up on me. Love is holding, it won't let go. I feel it breaking out, I can't let go. Your love is holding on, it won't let go. I feel it breaking out, I can't let go. Echo in my soul. Oh, oh. Hey. In every season, you keep repeating promises to me. Whoa, whoa, no, there's no stopping what you have started until it is complete. When my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me. Yeah, I've decided I'm not giving up. You won't give up on me. You won't give up on me. Come on, sing. Love is holding on, it won't let go. I feel it breaking out, I can let go. Your love is holding on, it won't let go. I feel it breaking out, I can let go. Echo with my soul. Oh, oh. Hey. Soul. Oh, oh. Echo with my soul. Oh, oh. Soul. Oh, oh. When my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me. Yeah, I've decided I'm not giving up. You won't give up on me. You won't give up on me. Love is holding on, it won't let go. Come on, hands up. Feel it breaking down, I can let go. Your love is holding on, it won't let go. Come on, baby. I feel it breaking out, breaking out. Hey! Your love is holding on, it won't let go. I feel it breaking out, I can let go.
chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. Oh, I am who you say I am. Yes, I am who you say I How great the chasm that lay between us, how high the mountain I could not climb. In desperation, I turned to heaven and spoke your name into the night. Then through the darkness, your loving kindness tore through the shadows of my soul. The work is finished, the end is written. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Who could imagine so great a mercy? What heart could fathom
feel like the band came ready today. What do you guys think? I love that. Oh, it's so good. I love that song, and the reason I love that song so much is that whether you're a follower of Jesus or not, a lot of us kind of were handed a version of faith and a version of Jesus that made him, like, you know, not have any teeth to it, you know what I mean? Like, he was just pretty with a stash and long hair, blue eyes, like, he looked cute. Like, cute Jesus, you know what I'm talking about? Like, you see on posters. My problem with that is that when the people who interacted with Jesus, like, talked about what he did, and they talked about what he said, what we find is a Jesus who's very passionate, and we find a Jesus who comes out like that roaring lion that we just talked about on behalf of other people. And see, we believe that the God of the universe loves you so much, and he loves me so much, he loves all of us in the room so much, that he would pursue you, and that Jesus would come, and he wouldn't just be, you know, kind of a pansy Jesus. Can I say that in church? We say that here. But he's not that. He's so passionate about you, and he loves you so much that he came and he gave his life for you. And we believe that he rose from the grave, and in so doing, he made a way to God that you could never make a way for yourself. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Sorry, I started preaching. We hadn't even started the talk yet. Sorry about that. Hey, so here's what I want to do. Before you sit down, it's St. Patrick's Day. And so some of you are slugging just a little bit from last night. That's okay. We're glad you're here. Go ahead and turn to the person next to you. Wish them a happy thanks Patty Day. Thank Patrick. Just go ahead and wish them a happy St. Patrick's Day. Give them 4 or 5 high fives, then you can have a seat. Maybe I'm the one that needs some coffee. That's good. All right. Well, they tell me that the 11 o'clock crowd is a rowdy crowd during this season. Am I right? Is that you guys? That wasn't it. Let's try that again. So they tell me that the 11 o'clock crowd is a rowdy crowd. Am I right? There we go. All right. We're so glad you're here. If it's your first time, I probably should introduce myself. My name is Patrick. I'm the lead pastor here, and we're so glad that you decided to join us today. And today's a fun day for us. Not only is it St. Patrick's Day, but we're kicking off a brand new series. And if you're new to our church, it's kind of interesting. I love to tell people this when they come. Is you're amongst a group of people who not only believe in like the mission of this place, but really are on mission and then are like stepping up to the plate on behalf of that mission. And so you're amongst a group of people who are extraordinarily generous. Like the people in this room, they give towards things, they go and volunteer in different ways. In fact, we're going to talk about a little bit of that today. But what's interesting about our church is also, if you've ever been to a church service before, there's always a point where people ask for money, and I think that's always so interesting when I attend other churches. But you're much a group of people who give just so generously, and they're not just giving to make a service happen like that, even though that does happen. They're actually giving towards the next generation. So on the other side of the room right now, there's between 70 and 100 kids that are over there with a group of volunteers. You're making that happen. We partner with a bunch of organizations here in town to help make this city better. But even more than that, this is what I love, is you're amongst a group of people who give to people that they will never meet, right? Give to people on the other side of the world, give to people on the other side of the country, and that's an amazing thing. We're part of bringing clean water to parts of Africa that doesn't have it, part of bringing young girls out of sex trafficking, which is an amazing thing. And so to those of you who give here, I want to say thank you so much to being a part of that. And for those of you who are new and you're like, what's all that? I just wanted you to know that you're amongst a group of people who are doing that. So I want to invite our ushers to move forward. We're going to receive our offering today. And if you're new to our church, or if you haven't given yet, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can always give it when the basket comes by, but really one of the best ways to do it is actually through text. In fact, the vast majority of people who give at our church for the first time give through text messaging, which is so interesting. So you can just text the word Kensington to 77977. You can also download our app and give in less than 10 seconds. So that way, or you can always go to kensingtonchurch.org/giving. That's a great way to be a part of this, and you can give there as well. The other thing I want to let you know about real quick as we're doing that is if you'll turn right back to this section back here, everybody say, "What's up, students?" Can we say that? Yeah, you did. Now throw up one of these because you're a cool adult. Go ahead and do this, one of these. I just want to see y'all do that. That's fun to watch. That's good. No, so I'm super excited. If you have a middle school student, one of our favorite things is we want to create an amazing environment for middle school students. And in so doing, one of the things that we said was, hey, what would happen if they came to the first part of our service, experienced some of the music, and they went back and they did games, they get a specific talk by themselves, and then they get to spend time with a small group leader. So we're so glad they're going to be joining us back there. If you have a middle school student and they're like, Mom, I don't want to sit with you, that's okay. We got a place where they can sit too. So you can always send them back there. And then if you have a middle school student as well, right after this, in just a minute, they're going to go and they're going to head back there, and your student can go with them to an environment that's just tailored to them as well. So I want to let you know about that. The other thing I want to let you know about too is we've been talking about this for the last 3 weeks, and I'm very excited about it. But what we're doing here at our church and all of our churches, so we have 6 churches here, all over Metro Detroit as well, is we're wrapping up a capital campaign, which means for the last 3 years, our churches have been raising money. And we haven't been talking about it up here because what happened is during the transition about 2.5 years ago, the first $1.8 million to this capital campaign came to this church here, and we didn't even talk about it here. We didn't really even address it, but people downstate gave money to see this happen up here, which is amazing. But now that we're wrapping up that campaign, we wanted to keep you updated on it and then invite you actually next Sunday to be a part of it. And so I wanted you to hear from our founding pastor, Steve Andrews, about some of the projects that they've been a part of downstate and then how we can get involved up here as well. So this is Steve Andrews talking a little bit about the Everyone campaign.
This is a for the king moment and for the kingdom moment where we say, yes, I'm in, and I'm in sacrificially, and I'm believing God, you will provide, and he will. And I'm doing this for you and your kingdom. God may use us, this family on mission, to accomplish your mission.
This adventure called Everyone requires significant financial resources to fulfill our mission to see everyone transformed and mobilized by Jesus. To accomplish big-time kingdom movements, like discipling the nations and the next generation, we asked everyone to pray about making a financial commitment over and above their current level of giving. So far, 3,728 households committed financial pledges, totaling over $21.5 million to the Everyone campaign. During the past 3 years, these households have given more than $17.2 million so far. We are blown away. I'm blown away by the open-handedness and generosity of our church family.
With the Everyone campaign coming to a close, let's take a look at what has been completed to date. All of this was possible because of the sacrificial giving of those who participated in the campaign. Traverse City became an official Kensington campus back in September 2016. There were many upgrades made throughout the building, including a new lobby for our first-time guests and a completely overhauled kids wing. We were able to upgrade the equipment in the auditorium so that it has the same level of excellence as the other Kensington campuses. We have seen an increase of nearly 100 kids every week in Kensington Kids. We are accomplishing our mission of reaching the one through younger families and the next generation in northern Michigan. Now, let's head to the east side. For almost 12 years, the Clinton Township campus made the weekends happen by unloading several tons of equipment into a rented facility. But in May 2018, CT has a permanent facility. Now nearly 4,000 people attend this new facility every weekend, and hundreds come through the doors the other 6 days of the week to discover hope and healing and to learn about a God who loves them and to find community within Macomb County. Did I mention they even have a fireplace? Jealous. We were also able to fuel the Kensington engine with upgrades to things like our website. There were 38,000 unique visitors last month visiting our site. IT infrastructure and online streaming equipment were also improved. These systems will help us manage information and communicate with people to more effectively reach the one. Have you ever heard of the saying, "This is why we don't have nice things"? Well, we can't say that anymore at our Troy and Orion campuses. Now our guests can enjoy their cup of coffee in our updated lobbies. New furnishings, floorings, and a fresh coat of paint in our permanent buildings make this a place where our first-time guests feel welcome. There is also clearly marked signage for the kids area and a hub where anyone can ask questions or get involved. Orange never looked so good. The Troy, Orion, and Traverse City campuses have made several upgrades with security for all the kids' areas. And at our new Clinton Township building, it was built right in. Now this one is not as thrilling as the others, but oh so important. The Orion building received a new stage floor and a new roof. Now, no more buckets strategically placed on rainy days. Seriously, it was leaking. We believe that investing in the next generation is a way to transform our local communities around Metro Detroit and Traverse City. So far, funds from the campaign have helped launch Youth with a Mission in Detroit. We have also poured significant financial resources into fueling our School Partners program, which partners with public schools near each of our campuses. A special thanks to our Kaleo Kids program, which has the awesome opportunity to work directly with 6 elementary schools. These kids not only have a chance to participate in the arts, but to hear about the love of Jesus as well. One of the passions of Kensington is church planting. Many churches to reach many different people groups and regions. In the past 3 years, Kensington has had the privilege of launching 2 church plants. Easttown Church with Clint Dupin and Michael Dupin near San Francisco, and Anthem Church with Colin and Liz Hartfield in the Boston area. Great things are happening coast to coast, thanks to the movement of God through the Everyone campaign.
Just because the capital campaign is coming to a close, it doesn't mean all the projects have been completed yet. There are still several powerful projects that need to be funded and will be funded if we hit our $21.5 million in original commitments. We see no boundaries in building God's kingdom. Some households have moved away. Some have had other financial obligations arise that required them to not fulfill their original commitment. But it's still our goal to reach the $21.5 million during the 3 years of this campaign by March 24th. And it's going to take our entire congregation to accomplish all the plans and projects of this campaign. For some, this means fulfilling their original commitment amount. For others, it means giving over and above. And for many, it means making a one-time gift to everyone so that we can finish strong and complete all the projects that God placed on our hearts to accomplish. By reaching our goal, we'll be able to have cash secured in a savings fund for the Birmingham campus when a 24/7 building opportunity arises. After 12 years of meeting at Groves High School, a facility will allow us to make a bigger impact to reach the one. On a regular basis, we're exploring possible locations, and it's been in our plans to set aside $3 million for Birmingham's permanent facility. The Troy campus, now being over 20 years old, which is unbelievable, needs updates such as the kids space so that we can continue to pour into the next generation. New signage, auditorium seating, and even a new parking lot is needed so we can welcome our guests with an excellent first impression. For the Orion campus, we have plans for lobby improvements and new seating in the auditorium, a second floor addition in the training wing, and potentially, and maybe most importantly, an orange slide in the kids area. By reaching our goal, we will be able to support and fund projects for our global partners. In Kenya, we'll be able to provide discipleship training for pastors, educate women and children on the anti-FGM movement, and reach the one in Pokot with new churches. In Nepal, we'll be able to fund more border stations between Nepal and India to keep girls safe from exploitation and to bring victims of human trafficking into safe homes to find healing and hope. We believe that God is continually on the move. And because of that, we want to be on the move as well. And all these projects, they're not just about the buildings or shiny new equipment or keeping up with the times or looking cool. It's about people. It's about the one. It's about people having a real encounter with Jesus. That's what we live for. That's what we die for. That's what we've given our lives to see happen. And it doesn't matter if it happens at one of our campuses or church plants or school partners or across the globe or in someone's living room. We long to see everyone transformed and mobilized by Jesus.
So one of my favorite things about a church is that when it comes to giving here, when it comes to being a part of something, we're really a part of something that's bigger than ourselves, right? And here in Traverse City, again, we've talked about how like a lot of us didn't even know that we were in a capital campaign. There were people all over Metro Detroit who were giving to see this happen, people who would never even visit here, which I don't understand why you wouldn't come to Traverse City, because Traverse City is the best city, am I right? We have moomers, so we win. I feel like we just win all over the place. And so all these kind of things are so interesting, but we give in a way where we're just like, hey, we want to give to people who may never even step through these doors, and people were doing that downstate. And so we're wrapping up the campaign. It's the first time that we really invited you to be a part of it. But what we're doing is next week, we are going to be having really what we're calling like the Great Day of Giving here. And what we're going to ask you to do is we're actually going to ask you to come. We're giving you these booklets. You'll get them on your way out as well. There's like a tear-off sheet on the back. And let me show you about this sheet. For the vast majority of us, there's a few options on here. A few of you have been given to the campaign, and so it asks you a couple questions about that. But the vast majority of us, this would be our one-time gift to be a part of this. And so we've been asking you the last few weeks to consider what it would look like for you to sacrificially give to be a part of this, so that we could see those things happen in Birmingham, so that we can see those things happen with Kaleo Kids, so that we can see those things happen at Troy and Orion and all of our global partners. And so with that, on one side of the sheet, you'll see this. You just kind of select which one or which option you would be. For the vast majority of us, that would be the fourth option, that we're new to the Everyone campaign, and we're going to make a one-time gift. And then on the other side, it asks you for a little bit more information, just like who you are and giving and those kinds of things, and it asks you to check that box there. So here's what I want to challenge our church to do, right? In Traverse City, I love this, but we've got a lot of amazing things happen here. We're very focused like locally, which again, I love. You eat at Blue Tractor, you most likely don't just go eat at other places. Like, we love our city, but at the end of the day, we want to be a part of what goes on even beyond our city, even though I know we're like an hour from the interstate. And just so you know that I know we're about an hour and 45 minutes to the nearest Chick-fil-A, right? So we know that we're a little bit pulled away from some of those things. But in that, right, it matters that we're part of something global, and it matters that we're part of something even national in the way that we're helping these things. So I'm going to challenge you and your family to come back next week. If you call this place home, right, if somebody goes, where do you go to church? And your answer to that is Kensington. We're going to ask you to come back next week with this torn off, and then all of us, right, all of us that are here that day, we're going to come up, we're going to put it in a box, we're going to commit to doing these things together as we wrap that up. So I want to invite you back again. You either got this on your way in or you'll get it on your way out, that little perforated sheet, and we're going to invite you to be a part of that again next week. The other thing I want to let you know about is, it's funny that these two things line up. I didn't mean to do it this way, but we have a thing called Financial Peace that's on its way as well. It's starting April 9th. I'm so excited about this. My mom made me take this when I was in high school because she wanted me to know it, which is a great idea. And then my wife and I took this when we were engaged, and we've even gone back through it since we've been married. It's really been one of the most life-changing things for us, and for a lot of you, it has been as well. But for those of you, and this is the way that I like to phrase it, if you have like a constant angst about finances in your mind, this is what you need to do, right? This is Dave Ramsey. He talks about some ways to kind of get over that, overcome debt, really position yourself in the way that you need to be positioned. So we'd love to invite you to be a part of this. Mark and Kay Mentley are teaching this class, and they are phenomenal. They're some people that I would even go to if I had questions about finances. So I would love for you to sign up for this if you haven't yet. The other thing I want to let you know about is we have Render coming up. How many of you have been to Render so far? Anybody been to Render? Oh, great. That's awesome. Render is one of my favorite things that we do. It's a night where we take communion together. We'd sing some songs. There's that. It's in a smaller environment, and then I speak. They always used to say I spoke a lot less, but I think that's just a lie. I don't think that's true at all. I think I speak longer. But we'd love for you to be a part of that. We kind of take a deeper dive. A lot of times we'll take content and go a little bit further in it. And so this week we're wrapping up really a series we've been doing on fear, and we'd love for you to be a part of that. Again, that's this Wednesday night at 7 p.m. right here at the church. The last thing I want to let you know about is for those of you who have elementary school kids, we're doing a K-Kids Staycation, right? So since we live in Traverse City, we know that you could go travel other places on spring break, but you're already in a vacation city, right? And so if you're staying here for spring break for the next 2 Sundays, we have an amazing environment for your kids. We're going to ask them to come in their favorite summer outfit to our K-Kids environment, and then bring even some like fun summer toys. They're going to have a lot of fun over there for the next 2 weeks, so we would love to invite you to be a part of that. Now, the last thing I want to tell you before we jump into the talk is we are kicking off a brand new series today called Formed, and over the next 4 weeks, we're going to be talking about 4 specific disciplines that are very difficult to apply, but if we figure out a way to apply it, it makes such an impact in our lives. And so to get us thinking in that direction, we've got a short video, and then we're going to jump into the talk together. Let's watch this. All right, so today we're kicking off a brand new series called Formed, and I'm very, very, very excited about this series because what we're going to be talking about is something that I think that's true of most all of us in the room. In fact, it's a really, really important principle for us to apply. Now, around these same lines, here's what I wanted to kind of poke at for a second. So before we jump in fully to the talk, I need to know real quick, and again, a reminder, you're in church, so don't lie, right? How many of you were the troublemakers when you were growing up? Do we have any of the troublemakers in the house? Don't lie, you're in church, come on. Some of you need to poke your spouse and be like, no, he's talking about you. Go ahead. Yeah, that's you. All right, and how many of you were like goody two-shoes? You were like a little angel and you got everything you wanted. Anybody like, I love it. And he's like, crap. Yeah. I love it, right? So there's kind of like a couple spectrums of this. Now, you get this kind of principle when you were a kid, right? You understand this? Because when you're a kid, a couple of interesting things happen. Your parents punished you when you were a kid, right? And some of you got a lot more punishment than your brothers and sisters because you're a troublemaker. But when you're punished as a kid, you really kind of bump into what we're going to talk about a little bit today, is in that your parents would punish you and like set you aside to teach you something. Now, I always thought this was funny, like because they would, as a kid, sometimes I would get time out. I got time out for the most part. And every once in a while, my mom would get so angry, she'd put me in time out. You're going to be in time out for 5 minutes. And 20 minutes later, I realized she forgot that she put me in time out. Do you ever have one of those, right? And then, spanking is always controversial, so, don't hate me too much. But, we would do spankings as a kid, and my mom would always say, like, this hurts me more than it hurts you. Anybody else get that speech? And she would like be all teary and emotional, and then all of a sudden, as a kid, like bend over, she's like, like she turned into that person. That's gonna be a GIF, like that's weird. Okay, so anyway, like there's all of that, like it's just a whole situation where you taking joy out of punishing me. Like what is that? And she assumed this, which is true, and I feel like your parents did too. If those of your parents do this, is that there are some things that we can only be taught if we experience the tension of what we did wrong, right? Like there's a tension that we kind of live within where we're taught certain lessons that just really shape us. And if you're a parent, you know this, if you're growing up, you were probably taught this. And we can say it this way, that most of our important qualities are formed through tension and not comfort. Some of you have learned the lessons the hard way. Others of you have continued to learn the same lesson the hard way over and over and over again, right? Like we just learned some lessons the hard way, and it's through that pressure, it's through that shaping, it's through that tension that a lot of times we become more of who we should be, and I think that's true of most every area in our life. Now, I'm going to be really open with you for the next couple minutes. As a guy who teaches out of the Bible, most every week, there are parts of the Bible that I read, and I kind of wish they weren't there. So if I'm going to be really honest, like there's a few passages that I wish, like Jesus, I wish he hadn't said that, or I wish he wasn't been quoted that way, or I wish that just wasn't in there. In fact, the passage that I want to look at today that's going to springboard us into what we're talking about is one of those passages. And the reason that I wish that it weren't there isn't because I don't believe it, because I believe it wholeheartedly. And the reason that I wish it weren't there is because it's not even because it's like super hard. It's just I have trouble applying this truth across the board in every area of my life. And so the passage that I'm talking about, when I came across it as a kid, I keep coming across it, and the older that I've gotten, the more that I've sort of wrestled this passage down. But this is a guy talking about really what it looks like to be generous, but not just generosity. He actually quotes Jesus on this, and here's what it says. It says, "In everything that I did," being the person who's talking, "I showed you that by this kind of hard work, we must help the weak," right? All right, so by hard work, by giving things up, by sacrificing, we're going to help those who are in need. Remembering the word the Lord Jesus himself said, which is kind of the trump card, for those of us who are followers of Jesus. If Jesus said it, you got to do it kind of thing. He says this: "It is more blessed to give than to receive." Can we all say this together? You ready? Right, on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. It is more to and to receive. Now, you've heard this all your life, right? I've heard this all my life. I had a football coach that used to apply this to football, right? I was a quarterback in middle school and high school, and I didn't like getting hit. I think that's obvious why. I didn't enjoy that part of playing football. And so my coach would always come up to me, and he would always say, "Hey, just so you know, it's more blessed to give than to receive." I'm like, I don't think I'd quote Jesus that way. But that's, it makes sense, right? I mean, it is, right? That's kind of what he's thinking. And the idea is this, that you actually get more out of being the person who's the giver than the recipient. Right? You get more out of being the giver than the recipient. Now, the problem with this is I want everybody else to apply this. And I want to believe that I'm the person that applies it, but it's hard to apply across the board. Now, as soon as you read this, most people think, especially the pastor talking, that we're just talking about money, right? And we're not, right? In fact, we're going to apply this to a lot of areas of your life. In fact, the most important areas of your life it's important to be the person who's giving, not just the person who's receiving. But my tension with this, and it may not be yours, but my particular tension with this idea is centered around the thought that I don't feel like I have enough, right? Like, it's hard to be a giver when you don't feel like you have enough. And I never, ever, ever feel like I have enough, right? I always assume like there will be a point in time when I have enough margin to do, whatever. Or there'll be a point in time where I have enough margin in one area to, to really be a giver. But until then, I'm going to be a person who's kind of a recipient. But being a person who gives, specifically in all, areas of our life, that's tough because this feeling of I don't have enough makes its way in so many areas of our life. For me personally, and this is a very real one right now, I don't feel like I have enough time. Like, I want to give my time and invest in other people and love other people well and be fully present with people. But, I get 24 hours a day just like you do, but I don't feel like I have enough time to do the things that I want to do when it comes to the important priorities of my life. Specifically money. When it comes to money, I don't feel like I have enough money to do some of the things that I want to do. I want to be viewed as a generous person, but that typically becomes like when I get more money, right? Now, do you remember your first job? You remember this? My first job, I think I made roughly $12,000 to $15,000, somewhere in that range. So I was part-time, whatever that is. But I was working full-time hours. And I remember when they told me, right, in college, I was going to make $15,000 a year. I remember thinking, wow, like this is awesome. And then I got out of college, took my first full-time job, and I made double that, which is like 30, which was great. And I remember going like, I'm freaking rich, I get a apartment, one room, studio. Like, I'm great. My mom gave me her cat. I'm in heaven. I have enough money now to, wait for it, buy a television. So I felt great about life all the way around. And in my head, I'm like, I'm going to be generous. And in my head, I'm also like, the more money that I get, the more generous I'm going to be. But you know what happened, right? And this is true of a lot of us. Is I never felt like I had enough money to be as generous as I wanted to be. And even when I made more money, it was like my lifestyle choices just continued to follow suit. And I just grew and grew and grew. And then I was like, there were times I was making more money and giving less money at the same time, right? Because I never felt like I had enough. And that's a temptation even now. Like, I always still go like, do I have enough to really do that? The other one is this, and we don't talk about this one a lot, but sometimes I feel like I don't have enough gifting. Some of you are very driven individuals. You have dreams for the future. You see a ladder, and all you want to do, is climb it in the corporate world. And you just don't feel like you have enough gifting when you compare yourself to other people, Like, you look at where other people are at the age that you are, and you go, well, they must be more gifted than me because they made it further than I have at this point. And you just don't feel like you have enough gifting. Now, I think this is incredibly important. These are 3 areas I want to talk about today because as long as we're kind of living in that space, it's hard for us to feel like we're really generous in the way that I feel like God has called us to be. And it comes down to a principle that is really right out of one of my favorite books. Actually, next to the Bible, this may be my favorite book. It's by a guy named Stephen Covey. A lot of you have read it. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he talks about this. He talks about the scarcity mindset versus the abundance mindset. Now, you get the scarcity mindset already. You understand this? Scarcity is like when the first iPhone came out, and there was a line all the way around Apple, and you felt all this angst, and people were lining up and waiting for it, Black Friday, whatever that is, have tents out there, all those crazy people, which was me too, but like all those things, because there was scarcity. There was a certain amount, and when that amount was done, then it was gone. And that affects our behavior. Anytime we feel like there's scarcity, what do? You try to get it. You're trying to grasp at it. Some of you remember this. Anybody remember Tickle Me Elmo? Some of you are laughing, but you're like, I went into debt over Tickle Me Elmo, Like, Tickle Me Elmo, when it came out, was like, this is like really pre-Amazon days. Like, you had to show up to the store, and, all these people, there's one left, everybody gathering, and you wanted to get it, so you had to kick the person out of the way, and they got violent. There were carts involved, security, but you got it, Like, Tickle Me Elmo is a big deal. Now, the other one that I feel that you don't feel, right, because you're a better person than me, and, you work out more than me, and you're stronger than me, all these kinds of things, is I feel this when it comes to donuts, right? Now, specifically, not just any donut. Have you ever been to Harvey's Donuts in town? I just discovered this. Harvey, I'm gonna hook you up, bro. It's his last name, but I wish I knew his first name. Anyway, so Harvey's Donuts in town, it's a great business model in some ways because what he does is he makes a certain amount of donuts every day. And then when they're gone, they're gone. So they may go by 9:30, they could go by 11, but at some point, all of those donuts are going to be gone. If you don't get it, you don't get it. You come back the next day. And so I'll tell you, scarcity mindset for me this past week is I got my wife and my kids, and we were running behind, and I'm like, all this pressure, like, we got in the car. Why? Because family breakfast, you know, like, I'm doing this whole deal. We finally all get in the car. By the time it's like 10:45, I'm like, I'm going to make it. I didn't even tell my wife where we were going. I just told her, we're going to the omelet shop, but where we were going was Harvey's. And so I turn off, we go in there, and all the donuts are gone. Now, here's what's so interesting for me, right? Again, you're a better person than me. I think we've already established that. But for me, right, scarcity does something to my actions. Like, it's not some random out there thought. Scarcity affects how I behave. Whenever I think there's scarcity, it does something to me. Like, think about it. A scarcity mindset and abundance mindset is very different things. Let's try it like this. When you think about scarcity, I want everybody in the room, if you would, take a big deep breath, go ahead and get it in, and let it out. Let's do one more, because some of you are a little tense, right? It's St. Patrick's Day, you're recovering. So take a big breath, let it out, right? Now, here's what you didn't just think. You didn't just look at everybody else in the room and go, I hope they stop breathing, because they might run out. You didn't do that. Now, if you were underwater, and it's you and the person that you're sitting next to, right, and you love your wife, but, you know, and your tank goes out and her tank's right there, it changes. Now, you love her. I get it. You're gonna help her out. But there's something in you that's like, I'd think about it, right? Right? There's something in you going like, Daddy's got to breathe. You know, like, that's weird. But you get it. Like scarcity affects your behavior, and it affects, sorry. Very rarely do I think something I said was funny, but I'm proud of that one. I'm proud of that. Daddy's got to breathe. My wife's somewhere going, wow. Yeah. Wow. Hearts. Anyway. So, like, you think about this, right? Like, scarcity affects your behavior, but abundance thinking also affects your behavior, right? If you assume that there's not enough, you're going to behave one way. But if you assume that there's an abundance, you're going to behave differently. In fact, I think the only real cure to get over the scarcity mindset is being generous. Now, here's what I know about you too, right? And I know this because I feel this about me. I think I'm already a generous person. Now, how generous, we could debate. And you think you're already a generous person. Like, most people don't wake up in the morning, look in the mirror and go, wow, you're just not generous enough. Because you know that with the circumstances that you have, with the hand that you've been dealt, with how many kids that you have and how many of them you pack in that minivan and all the things that you do, and you work full time, and you got all like your time and your resources, you feel all of this angst around all the things that you do. And you go, but I'm still able to, and then you fill in the blank. You do this with your finances. I don't have all the money, but look how much I do give. I do that. Now, what I want to say today is if you're not a follower of Jesus, for the next few minutes, I want to let you off the hook, right? And I mean that. If you're not a follower of Jesus, it's easier not to apply it. In fact, I already said, I wish this part weren't in the Bible. But if you are a follower of Jesus, there's no way of escaping what we're about to talk about because it comes from a text that's so powerful. I don't think God is calling us to be generous people. I don't. I don't think God's looking at you going, let's see what you can do. Let's just see you be generous. I don't think that's it. I think the writers of the New Testament, I think Jesus himself, when he talks about giving, when he talks about being a part of these things, I think he calls us to be irrationally generous. Now, for all of you who are type A like me, you just got real tense, right? What I mean by irrationally generous is I mean like giving past the point that it seems to make sense. Now, here's what I mean by that. The people who impacted your life the most that you most admire, right? They were irrationally generous to you with their time. I'll never forget the day that I was in the hospital one time. I used to do hospital visits all the time in my very first job. And I'm so thankful for that time. I showed up, and there's somebody who just had a heart attack. They were there, and we're having a conversation. I'm trying so hard to keep the conversation about them. All they wanted to do was talk about 22-year-old me. And not like in some weird, like they genuinely cared what was happening in my life. That's irrational. That doesn't make sense. If you're laying on a hospital bed right after a heart attack, it's like, talk to me. Look at my, talk about me. That's irrationally generous. When you meet somebody, and it's not how much they give financially, when you meet somebody who sacrificially gives to the point that it affects their lifestyle, that does not make sense. But it does something to our heart, right? That's what we're talking about. I think God actually calls us to irrational generosity in that way. Now, it's hard for us because there's a scarcity mindset, right? And even for those of us who are followers of Jesus, again, if you're not, I think you're off the hook for this point, but the question for those of us who are followers of Jesus is, do I believe that God will take care of me? Now, if you believe in God and you believe in Jesus, you're a follower of Jesus, most of us in our head would answer yes to this question. I don't think this is the big tension for most of us who are followers of Jesus. I think we like to live here and talk about it. I think the real question is, do I believe that God will bless me? Not will you take care of me and meet my needs, but will you meet the standard of living that I think I should have? I'm going to have fun in this next statement. All right, here we go. For many of us, the question isn't if God will take care of us, but will he take care of us in the way that we hope to be taken care of? And if we feel like he might not, then our tendency, my tendency, is to be the one who grasps at control and to immediately, very subtly, begin to adopt but what if there's not enough to make me feel like? Or what if there's not enough for me to be able to get? Or what if there's not enough inside of who I was made to be to accumulate or to make it to a certain point? And that's hard. Because it requires you to have faith, not just that God is going to take care of you, but that God also knows best about where joy is found in your life. Now, in the Old Testament, there's a guy named David. Most of us know him, young guy, slingshot, giant fell down, became king, right? But he also wrote all of these poems and songs that are very deeply rooted in our experiences and our tension with life. And in one of those, it's in Psalm 24, he says this, and I love it, especially getting after this abundance idea. There's the earth is the Lord's, and can we say this next part together? And which means money, which means all of your gifting, which means the time that you're given that you don't get to control. Everything in it, the world and all who live in it, meaning you and meaning me, which means this, and I love this. David would say that our obsession with scarcity makes no sense in the context the fact that it's not yours anyway. Makes no sense in the context of if God is who he said he is and he's done what he's said that he's going to do, that abundance is prevalent because it's his. And you're simply like a conduit by which he works through. Now later on, lots of years later, another person writes about this. His name is Paul. And Paul is writing to a group of people who have the same tensions and same struggles that you and I have, specifically when it comes to being generous. And what Paul does is he actually gets very deeply to the heart of where I think we find ourselves in this struggle. He writes to this group of people and he says, remember this. Whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly. Now, you don't talk about sowing and reaping very often. Most of us don't because you're not really in the crop world, But as that's true, right, it's saying this, that what you plant is what you're going to get in some way. So he says that whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, but whoever sows generously will also reap generously. That there is a way in the world and a way of being in the world and a principle in the world. That the more that you sow and the way that you sow and sowing in the right way will also turn on the other side of that. Joy and peace and the way that God has called you to live within it. In fact, the next verse is so interesting to me, and I hate the word that's used at the end of it, not the Greek version of it, but the English word we translate with it. Here's what it says. He goes on, he says this. He says, each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give. And I love this. Not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. Now, I just don't like the word cheerful, and that's just me. I always think of Santa Claus, like he's jolly, and he's just very happy, right? The idea is that, for me, cheerful feels just like I'm just happy all the time. And I'm like, but, the Lions lost. I'm not happy about that, right? You're not happy. I won't make the Michigan joke. We won't do that. It's too soon. But, you're not happy in those moments. But what Paul is getting after, and the Greek word for this, is endless joy. Not happiness, not just cheerful, but joy. That there is a way of being in the world when you give, that you feel joy and peace and rest. Now, the first part of this verse is so interesting to me because it says, each of you should give where you've decided in your heart that you have a plan towards generosity. You have a plan on being generous with your time. You have a plan on being generous with the financial resources you've been given. You have a plan for being generous in the way that you use your gifting and your talents within the world. And he says this, not reluctantly or under compulsion, which I love because as a pastor, all the time I hear people just assume that pastors like, how do we manipulate this with like a Sarah McLachlan song that everybody just kind of leans in and now I'm going to give all my money. In fact, I went to a church service one time where the pastor took the offering up and he stood there and everybody had to walk up and put it in and he looked in. And after everybody come through, he looks at it and he goes, nope, that's not enough. Let's do it again. Close the doors. And I went, I will take off my guitar, you know? Because I'm like, why would you ever do that? It makes no sense. I was playing guitar, by the way. I just didn't have it in my back pocket. How cool would that be? You know, anyway. I'm on fire today. Sorry. It's been 5 weeks. I'm ready to go. And so I thought to myself, I'm like, why would you do that? Why would you assume that it's up to you? I love it. Why would you assume that it's up to your ability to manipulate? Everything in the world is God's. The last thing I want people at our church to do is give because they feel guilty. And here's why. Because you don't experience the gift that comes with generosity if you just give out of guilt. And you don't experience the gift of generosity if you just give out of comfort. And that's true of your time, that's true of your giftings, and that's true of your financial resources. Guys, like, you shouldn't feel reluctant. You should feel like I am going to be disciplined about doing this in whatever way that is in terms of giving. And find yourself on the joy that comes with doing it. And then he gives us the why. He says, and God is able to bless you abundantly, not necessarily in the ways that you think about. It goes on. So that in all things at all times, having all that you need, now here's the purpose, that you will abound in every good work. I don't give so that I get. It's not just about me. You find joy and peace on the other side of giving, whatever that is, in the way that it affects humanity, the way that it affects the world. And then he puts in a quote that kind of hammers this home. And the words that are used are so powerful. It says, as it is written, they have freely scattered their gifts to the poor. Their righteousness endures forever. And that's what I think about this. Freely scattered. Left to my own vices, when things come my way, my gut response is not to scatter it. It's to collect it, right? How do I bring more and more and more in? And then what do I do with it? I'm gonna hold it so that I feel, you ready? Secure. Secure that I made it happen, secure that I had the power to make it happen, secure that I made it happen for myself, secure in the fact that I have enough. Paul's like, no. That it comes to you. And God's design for all resources. Your money, God's design for your talent and gifting, God's design for your time is that it comes to you and flows through you and is freely scattered all over the world. Just before you finish, can you imagine this for a second? If everybody in the world approached their resources like that, like if everybody who is gifted in the world, which is all of us, so this gifting isn't just for me and my fame and how far I can get and what ladder I can climb and how much more I can accumulate. So as it comes to me, as you've given it, God, use me as a vessel and flow through me. If you think about every dollar in the world, and I love it. If you start thinking about the stats around this, it's humbling. How much could happen? Just for a second. We talk about this a lot. If you sliced off 10% of your income, just think about this. And if everybody in the world did that and say, I'm gonna slice off 10 to give it away, what would happen all over the planet when it comes to poverty, when it comes to injustice, when it comes to reaching in and helping the poor? And here's what's interesting. When it comes to those kinds of things, You think on a macro level, like we could literally, not just like, oh, kind of hope to or like dream about, we could change the world. If everybody thought, and I'm a vessel, and it comes to me, and it flows through me, and it scatters like goodness all over the world. The God of the universe invites us into that level of peace and joy and purpose. So here's what I hope for you, and this is what I hope for me, what I hope for our family is this, that I'll choose these three commitments, that I will choose to be generous with my time. Now, out of the three, I would say this is probably the hardest one for me. You'll probably have a different one. But when it comes to time, I want everybody to like me, right? I want to spend time with as many people as possible. Everybody's like, you're an introvert. You don't like hanging out with people. I love hanging out with people. I just have to go sleep afterwards. It's great, right? But I love it. And so for me, I'm like, I want to do that. And I want to say yes to everybody. But the truth is, this is humbling for me, is everyone is given the same 24 hours, right? Everyone's given the same 24 hours per day, but not everyone spends them intentionally. Now, I wrote this statement this morning at like, I don't know, 6:15, 6:30. I was sitting out there waiting to come in. And I was like, spend is an interesting word, which is a lot of times what I assume it is. When you manage your time well, it's not about spending your time, right? It's actually about investing your time. You're given 24 hours a day to use as a resource to invest. And your legacy is going to be determined in large part by the way that you invest those 24 hours consistently. And for me, I got an almost 3-year-old and a 6-month-old. And so for my day, a lot of times it feels like I come in and out of my day, and I get up in the morning and I go to Harvey's. What's up, bro? I do all that. And then drop them off, come to the church, I work, I go home. If the toys aren't picked up because I didn't pick them up the night before, I look at the toys and I go, should I do it? Should I not? He's going to pull them back out anyway. Oh, I stepped on a Lego. Beep. You know, like all those kinds of things. I'm kidding. But like all those kinds of things, right? I'm half kidding. Yeah. And I think to myself, does it feel like a routine every day? Where's the margin to invest in others? Because here's what I know, and it haunts me. And when I'm 90 or 100, or if I keep eating the donuts, maybe less, what I know is this. I'm going to look back and wonder what I did with the time. And if I didn't intentionally scatter the goodness of my time, and if I didn't slice out sections or times of my life to invest in others, ready? I will regret it, and you will regret it. So when it comes to my time, these are the things that I'm personally working on. I hope they help you too, is this. I want to invest in my family first. And the gut-wrenching question for me is not how much time I spend on my family, even though you have to spend a lot of time with your family. It's, does your family feel like you are present? Like, if you're married, you need to look at your spouse and say, do you feel, not am I, do you feel like I am? Because here's the deal breaker. If she doesn't feel like it, it doesn't matter how much time you spend. You can spend 24 hours a day with your kids and look at your phone and not talk at all. I can go through my entire day and not look at my wife in the eyes. In my life, those are the regrets. Come on, you get this. It's not whether you did. And I'm like type A. I'm like, well, I was, I took off work. I showed up at the house. Like, you did, and you walked in. She doesn't say it like this. She's very kind of it. Like, you walked in, and you sat down, and you looked at the TV. I'm like, I'm going to watch Psych on Netflix for 4 hours, That's how many moments my entire life so far is when my son grabbed my face away from something and put it to his face. Daddy, right? You have to invest in your family first. The second one is this. You have to remember that not everyone who asks for your time should get your time. And this one's hard. This one's so hard. Hey, South Carolina. This one's hard. If you're at all a people pleaser, you want to say yes to everybody. The problem is that if you say yes to everybody, you're saying no to really investing in a few. And you don't have the capacity, you don't have the time to invest in everybody. And some of you, and this is where it gets really hard, you wouldn't say this out loud, and I get to say it because I'm on stage, it's hard to say. And some of you are investing in somebody that you shouldn't be investing in anymore. That your time could be better leveraged with somebody else, making a different impact over here. And one of the hardest things is to say, I'm going to choose to invest my time differently. If you're in an organization, you lead an organization, it's hard to look at budget and say, I'm going to move this investment over here because it means I'm saying no over here. But to live your life with the kind of legacy that you want to live, it means I'm going to say no to this so that I can say yes to this. And by saying yes to this, does that maximize my influence? And does it make the maximum impact in my life right now. You can't say yes to everything. You can't say yes to everybody. And the last one is this. And Tanya, who's on our staff, who helps me with all this stuff, especially when it comes to time, she said versions of this much nicer than this, but what gets on the calendar actually gets done for me for the most part. And what doesn't is just wishful thinking. Which means if you don't plan it and you don't calendar it, right, it's just kind of hoping that it'll happen. So fellas, I can't talk to all the ladies on this, but I can talk to fellas for just a second, right? Ready? Some of you need to schedule your date nights. Now, I wouldn't tweet that, even though people are watching online. Hi. But you need to schedule your date night. Here's why you need to schedule it. Because you haven't had a date with your wife, like a real date, in months. And if you don't schedule it, it's likely not going to happen. And if it doesn't happen and you fast forward and it continually doesn't happen, you will regret it. Some of you need to schedule family time. You need to put it on the calendar that I am not available during this time. And it'll completely change the way that you approach your time if you do it that way. The other one is this. Talk for a second about money, right? I will choose to be generous with my money. This is hard for all of us. It's hard for me too, right? If we're living in a scarcity mindset, it's hard to be fully generous, especially irrationally generous with our money. Here's what scarcity looks like. I'm going to take my money and I'm going to live on 100%, or I'm going to live and I'm going to make my decisions first on what I want to live by. And then after that, whatever's left over is what I'm going to save. And then after that is whatever is left over, that's what I'll give, right? And we assume that we're being generous because we give something. But in actuality, you're not feeling that at all, right? Scarcity mindset, I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough, so I'm going to live first, save second, give third, right? Abundance mindset says it like this, ready? I'm going to choose to give first, I'm going to save second, and then I'm going to live on the rest. Now again, I said this earlier, and I love it. If you take $10 bills, you take one of those dollar bills, and you give that away right off the bat, and you take the next $1 bill, and you give it to yourself, and you save it, and then, don't miss this is fun. And then you get to live off of 8 of the $1 bills. Now, if I told my 3-year-old that, he would go, wow. Actually, he wouldn't. He doesn't know that word yet. Nor does he care about money yet. But when he does, he will look at me and go, wow. But when you're making X amount of money and you're full-time and you're salaried and you're you start looking at it and you start going, but one of those $1 bills would buy a car. And the more money that you have, almost the harder it is to give. Because you're looking at it and seeing what you could do with that. But I promise you this. And I talked to one of our financial advisors recently, and I love this. He said this. He actually said a version of this, which I love. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, it's good. It's good. Like, if you do this, he's like, you don't worry about saving later on. And you look at the impact, right? In a lot of ways, they look at the impact that you were able to make by how much you gave at 95 years old, right? And you look at how much you give away if you do that consistently over the span of your life. Can you imagine the impact that you could make in that way? The last one is this. I will choose to be generous, and this is one we're going to talk about a lot, with my gifting, right? Now, if you're anything like me, there are moments when you don't feel like you are enough to do what you feel like you want to do. That you have big dreams and vision, and here's what could happen in the future, and I want to pursue this, and no, which is amazing. But you look around, and it's like other people have gone further faster. You look around, and it seems like you weren't quite there yet, or it wasn't your time, or are you actually gifted in this area? And this is painful. And so for those of you, for a second, I want you to look at me as intently as you could possibly look at me, and I'm going to read this statement, and some of you are like, you're going to feel it heavily. Others of you, it's going to hit you later on at like 3 o'clock in the morning. I want you to imagine this is true, that God has gifted you for the purpose that he's called you to. And if that's true, don't miss it, if that is true, then in you lies what you need. And it's not all based on you. Some of you are pursuing things that you're not gifted at, and you need to stop it. And some of you you're gifted at things that you're afraid to try. But if you did, the opportunities would open up so much for you. And you're like, well, I'm too old to start at square one. And then which I love all these like Facebook memes that show, but then Steve Jobs started when he was in Amazon. It was great. Just true, right? There's no too late to start. You start and then God moves through you, right? I put in my notes this way, I said this. I said, the more deeply we lean into God's gifting in our lives, the more clearly we see his purpose for our lives. And it always takes a step and an act of obedience on your part. Then when you begin to realize, hey, I'm gifted in this, or this is what breaks my heart, and I want to move in that direction. Oh my goodness, what breaks my heart and what things that I'm gifted about, they coincide, I start moving in that direction, it changes your entire world. Now I'm going to tell you real quick, and you won't feel this like I do, and I understand that, but for me, this came into like a big moment of tension. I was a musician for a long time. I love music, right? And in my mind, I was like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get two guys. We're going to get in a really terrible minivan, and we're going to travel all over the place and play music all the time. And all these people are going to show up for me. Then we're going to open for John Mayer. And then one day, John Mayer's going to open for me. You know, like all those kind of things. You laugh because it's funny, right? I'm going to do music. Music is going to be my thing. And I had a recording studio. I had, a lot of money and gear. I had 7 guitars. Why do you need 7 guitars? I didn't, but I had 7 guitars also. And then I'd been speaking on and off for most of my life, but in the back of my head, I kind of felt like, maybe I'll be a pastor, but maybe one day after I'm done with my music thing, right? And I didn't feel emotionally around what I was most gifted at. I felt emotionally around something that I wasn't. And then all of a sudden, people started like, man, when you speak, you feel more natural up there. Oh, this. All I wanted them to say was, man, you can sing. Whew, you can play guitar. But all I found was like this gifting over here. And then I started doing it. I was telling Jane and DC this earlier. I took a preaching class, and then somebody told me that I wasn't good at it. I got the lowest possible grade in that class that I could get. He gave me a C-, and then he critiques me in front of the entire class, and I'm sitting there like, well, this is just confirmation. I should be John Mayer. I'm sitting there. Now I get it. And someone looked at me, they're like, no. They invited me to speak to 35 middle schoolers. And I did a message called Exposing the Matrix. Remember that movie? And of course, my first message was on sex, right? To 6th graders. On exposing the matrix. And I had this great illustration, you ready? And I glued 2 pieces of paper together, trying to do an illustration, a pink one and a blue one. I was like, you do this, become one. And I used, sorry, this is fun information for you. I used rubber cement. Apparently rubber cement doesn't dry very fast. And so when I pulled it apart, it was supposed to like rip and, it just became a weird thing. like it just became weird. And I walked away going, I don't see it. So I see this in you. And there came a point where I gave all my music stuff away. I kept 2 guitars. I kept one, which I wanted to play with my son. And you're like, but I don't care about music. And you don't. But there's something for you that you might need to give up that you love so that you can give or receive something that you love more on the other side. And it requires you to say, I'm going to be so passionate about taking the giftings that you've given me and being a conduit by which you move through me. So I want to look at this one verse one more time. Kind of a different lens. It's Paul saying, Jesus himself said, it's more blessed to give and to receive. Not just financially, but in your time, in your money, and specifically in your gifting. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do, and then we're going to bring the band out here in a second. But here's what I want you to do today. This is what I want you to do. I want you to just spend some time acknowledging where you are, right? For those of you, when it comes to your time, come on, you need to look at somebody who knows you and knows you for real. Say, am I investing in the things that I tell you that I care about? Am I investing enough in the things that I tell you that I care about? And if they look at you and say no, then you need to make some changes, right? Financially, are you ready? This is so painful, but you got to do it. I want you to go back and look at your bank statement over the last year. Sit down, ready? And look at it in the mirror and say, how generous was I when it came to my finances? And what percentage did you actually give away? Not like but actually look, what did you give away? I did this one year and I would have told you, I gave away 15% one year. And I looked at it, I was like, I gave away 2.5% that year. And it's easy just to not even look at it, right? And I think when you're gifting, you ready? Are you afraid? Have you just not discovered it yet? Or are you just in an endless cycle of just I'm doing the same thing over and over again? Acknowledge where you are. The other one is this, and I think this is so important. You have to create a routine or a system to make sure that you're moving in the direction that you need to go. right? When it comes to your time, it has to be on a calendar. You have to move in the direction where there's a system prioritizing what matters most. When it comes to your finances, I'm telling you, you have to predetermine what you're going to give and what you're going to save and automate it. We live in a world where you can automate everything. What we do is it comes out of our, I don't even want to see it. I want to see what I have to live on in our account. Everything else I want automated, going. All right? When you automate it, you prioritize it, and you're like, but I don't feel it if I do it that way. You'll feel it on the other side of it when it's sitting there waiting on you. Right? Automate. The last one is this, and this one sounds weird, and I wish I could figure out a better way to say it, but this is what it is. I want you to plan for your increase. What I know about you is that there will be a day where you have more margin in your time. And if you don't plan for that moment, you'll fill it with things that don't matter. When it comes to your finances, I want you to plan for the day that you're making twice as much money as you're making right now. And I want you to have a plan for when that day comes. Because when that day comes, the temptation will be to continue to match. And you don't want to do that. You want to be an irrationally generous person who figured this out. And then when it comes to your gifting, you ready? Here's what I want you to do. I want you to plan and act as if you are where you want to be. Not that you're not growing, but assuming the fact that that day will come. So that when that day comes, your heart is prepared, that your other parts of your pursuing are prepared, and you're ready for the day that the increase comes. For when the increase comes, you're not tempted to go one direction or the other. So that one day, all of us could be known as people who are irrationally generous, where other people look at you and go, it makes no sense that you gave away that much money, and you get to smile and go, I know. Why do you do it? Because God has called me to be a person who stewards all those resources in a direction. So the bottom line, and we're going to wrap up with this. As a recipient, for those of us who are followers of Jesus, as a recipient of irrational generosity, the God of the universe looks at you, says, I love you enough in spite of your brokenness to be irrationally generous for giving you all of the things that you've been given. As a recipient of irrational generosity, we must become a dispenser of irrational generosity. And that we, as individuals and as a church, as a community, as a city, may be known as people who had a plan and were irrationally generous in the ways that mattered most. So here's what I'd love for you to do, if you would. I'd love for you to stand. We're going to wrap up here in just a second. And what we're going to wrap up with is a song that I'm so excited about. And if you're a follower of Jesus, I'm going to invite you to sing this, because I think it matters that you actually say these words out loud. The song's called Build My Life. And it sounds so fluffy at first to me. Like, I'm going to build my life. Yes. What does that even mean, And then I saw some Legos the other day. Do you have any Lego fans out there? Any Lego people? Yeah. I thought to myself, I was like, building around something can be difficult, right? Like, the idea that I'm going to reorder and reprioritize around a group of principles and around the person of Jesus and what he's called me, that's painful at times. But that's what he's called us to do. Following Jesus is not just about all of the feely, hand-raising moment, even though those are great. It's about saying on the day in and day out basis, I'm going to build the life, I'm going to build my legacy, I'm going to build my reputation, I'm going to build our family, I'm going to build all my relationships, I'm going to build my career off of what you said. And I'm going to come into it open-handed saying, God, it's not for me to hoard. It's for me to receive and scatter. And then you watch what he does through you. And it's extraordinary. So what I want to do is I want to pray for you. We're going to sing this song, and I'm going to ask you to sing this song as a prayer as we wrap up our time together. Let me pray for us, and we'll do this. Father, God, we thank you for what you want for us. And on the other side of all of these principles, on the other side of the tension that we face, on the other side of figuring out what this actually looks like in our lives, there's a level of centeredness and a level of joy and a level of peace that it's so difficult to find. And so, Father, I pray for all of us in the room that are followers of you, that we would do this now, no matter how old we are, no matter where we are, in our journey on following you, God, that we would choose to prioritize what you called us to in our time and our finances and the giftings that you've given us. And that you would do something extraordinary, that when we look out at the end of our lives, we go, only you could have done what you did, and say, thank you for doing it through me. And God, for the person in the room who's not a follower of you and the whole faith thing kind of feels distant or they're not sure about it. And I pray that they would just give these principles a chance and begin to see what it's like to just even trust you in taking that step. Even if they don't fully believe in you, but just say, hey, I'm gonna trust and apply some of those principles, see what's on the other side of it. And God, I pray that you would make yourself so real to them as they do that. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you, oh, we live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open all my eyes in wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to all surround me. Sing Jesus, Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. So holy, holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open all my eyes in wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to all surround me. And I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. And I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation, and I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. There is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me.
Hey, I want to say this. Thanks so much for joining us today. And throughout the series, I know you some of you came in like that felt kind of heavy, and it is kind of heavy. It really has big implications for us. And so throughout the series, we're actually going to be talking about a few of those things. And so here's what I want to say to those of you who attend our church regularly. Next week, I want to however I can get you here, I want you to be here. And the reason is next week we're almost kind of having like a family discussion on some of the things that we're going to be talking about. And what it is we're going to be talking about what it's like to actually have a faith conversation next week. And so what's so interesting is a study just came out, which I think is true of most of us, that 90% of people who are followers of Jesus would say, hey, it's important to share my faith. Only 43% of them actually do that, which is so interesting. And part of that's because of the angst that we feel around it. So next week, we're going to be diving into that. I'd love for you to join us next week. Bring somebody with you, and I promise when you do, they're going to be sitting there going, yep, and doing that. So we'd love for you to be a part of this. Join us next week for part 2 of Formed. And if it is your first time, we're going to be out in the lobby. We'd love to meet you at the hub and meet you out there. Again, thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you right back here next Sunday. See you soon. And thank you so much for watching online. We're so glad that you decided to join us today, and we hope that you enjoyed your experience with us. I want to let you know that next week, again, we're going to be talking about what it looks like to have faith conversations, which is a big kind of thing for us to talk about, because as I just said, a little over 90% of people think we should be sharing our faith if we're followers of Jesus, but it's difficult to do that, and it causes the vast majority of us not to do it, especially in the workplace or in some of our friend relationships. So we'd love to invite you back for that. The other thing I want to let you know is that if you're not currently following us on social media, we'd love to invite you to do that as well. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Those are the best places to find out more information about our church, all the things that are going on, even behind the scenes looks, and all the things that are happening here. Again, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you right back here next Sunday.